Lord of Mysteries, Amon, I'm here to steal your throne by Zhi Chi Rou Zong. Chapter 26-50. Stand at a high place and aim the ring at the moonlight, and you will be able to see the location of our black market in the city from the ring's circle. You can buy and consign any Biander item, with a 10% fee for each consignment. Thorn shook his neck and explained fiercely to Kornli. So this ring had such a use. I understand. So, can I go? Kornli smiled. Have a pleasant evening. Thorn watched Kornli walk up the stairs with light steps, his right hand clenching tighter and tighter. Sooner or later, you will die by my hands. Kornli walked out of Endless Backpack, waved down a private carriage, quickly boarded it, and closed the carriage door tightly. Where to, sir? The coachman turned and asked. Just go straight for now. Kornli said. It wasn't until 10 minutes after leaving Endless Backpack that Kornli recovered from his feigned composure. He leaned back against the carriage's seat, the back of his shirt completely soaked, feeling damp against the seat. He had just circled the entrance to Mr. Azek's underworld. It was truly dangerous. Thankfully, his knowledge from his previous life had saved him. Phew. Sir, do we still need to go forward? We are about to leave Tingen City. The coachman's voice came from the front. Leaving the city gate will require calculating the fare based on a chartered ride. 12 Purple Thistle Street. Kornli said. All right, sir. Although confused, the coachman still turned right at the next intersection and took a detour to take Kornli home. Kornli returned home, let out a long breath, and stood by the window, holding the ring and looking out through its circle. Through the ring, he could clearly see two black dots flickering under the crimson moonlight, one of which was a place he had just visited. Why did he have such a strong urge to go to the Spirit of the Candle Eater black market just now? Kornli pondered bitterly, then suddenly grimaced with a bitter smile. He had already found the answer. The law of convergence of Biander characteristics of the same pathway, the greater the quality, the stronger the attraction. Characteristics of the same pathway will attract each other like magnets, and the closer the distance, the stronger the attraction. What attracted him was not the owl worshipper, black market, but Diana Jacob. The inexplicable attraction he felt emanated from her. Or more specifically, the marauder potion on him was attracted to the potion on Diana Jacob, which prompted him to come to the owl worshipper, black market, to the auction, and finally to meet her. This meant that she could attract many Beyonders of this pathway, gathering them to serve her. This was a considerable force. Although he wasn't sure what she wanted to do, she had mentioned family and honor in her words with him, and these things seemed very important to her. Kornli lay down on the bed, carefully thinking about her every action, and fell asleep in bitter contemplation. Monday was his usual day off. With no other arrangements for the time being, Kornli woke up in the morning and performed his daily exercises and reading. Around 4 in the afternoon, he came to the Divination Club on Horse Street again. Good afternoon, sir. Angelica's eyebrows raised slightly, but she quickly returned to her usual smile. She remembered that this gentleman's tips far exceeded others, and this was his second visit. Could it be that the Divination Club she recommended last time didn't meet his needs? There were quite a few young and beautiful diviners there. Good afternoon, beautiful lady. Kornli smiled. May I join the club? Of course. Angelica nodded. Our annual membership fee is 5 gold pounds, and we provide free drinks, newspapers, and books. She carefully looked around, leaned forward slightly, and whispered, Did that club on Elvin Street not meet your requirements? No. Kornli replied in an equally low voice, In fact, I know Mr. Klein Moretti, whom you introduced. The question I want to ask is too personal. If he were here, he would definitely offer to give me a free divination, but that would mean I would have to share some things with him. You know, some things are better handled with strangers. Angelica nodded. You are right. Some things are indeed not suitable for sharing with acquaintances. Although this is our second meeting, my faint knowledge of divination tells me that you should go exercise, watch a sufficiently heartbreaking play, or go climbing. Releasing the suppression in your heart would be more suitable for you. Kornli tapped his brow with his hand. Not everything is suitable to be hidden in one's heart. Angelica was stunned for a moment. Mr. Klein Moretti had also told her these words a few days ago. How did you see that? The center of your astral body has dimmed to the extreme, clearly indicating that some things have been suppressed in your heart for a long time. Are you also a diviner? No, I am just good at interpreting facial features. This is not the same as divination, it is more about understanding some confusions in your heart. This is a completely new field. Kornli tapped the document in front of him. May I fill it out now? Of course, sir. Angelica admiringly handed the membership document to Kornli. Like Mr. Klein, you are also a very excellent expert. These are the membership cufflinks, please keep them. We have 2 floors here, with different divination rooms. Daily lectures will be announced on the blackboard in the main living room. Angelica accepted Kornli's membership fee and led him inside, introducing everything in detail. What would you like to drink today? We have black tea, Dixie coffee, and a rich flavored high mountain coffee. A cup of black tea, please. Kornli placed his hat on the coat rack by the door, walked to the sofa and sat down, picked up a copy of Constellations and Fortunes from the nearby bookshelf, and began reading peacefully. Half an hour later, Klein walked in and saw Kornli on the sofa, his eyes widening in surprise. Good afternoon, Klein. Kornli lazily raised his hand to greet him. It seems we chose the same day for a break. Klein took off his hat, sat on the sofa opposite Kornli, leaned forward, and whispered, if you need divination, you can totally ask me for help during working hours. The membership fee here is very expensive. No, I just happened to choose this club. Kornli put down the book. Old Neil told me to go out more, but I'm completely uninterested in those men's clubs. Their interests lie in chatting and playing cards, neither of which I like. On the contrary, a club like this, where I can acquire knowledge and appreciate the grace of women, suits me better. Kornli nodded his head forward. A woman in a long dress passed by the 2 men, saw Kornli and Klein, and mischievously winked at the 2 gentlemen, covering her greedy smile under her small fan. You see, actually, I'm here to monitor Heinz Vincent and his process of developing subordinates, but it's too early to tell you all this now, and I also can't explain how I know all of this. Oh. Klein and Kornli exchanged a meaningful glance. You have excellent taste. Wait. Klein suddenly remembered something and leaned closer again. My dear Kornli, you haven't set your sights on the money bags of the ladies and gentlemen present, have you? No, after all, I earn £6 a week, so why would I be interested in their money bags? Then I'm relieved. Klein exhaled. If I succeed, I'll split it with you. Kornli picked up the book again. Klein, I don't want it. Someone is looking for you for a divination, Mr. Klein. Miss Angelica walked over and said softly. He seems very familiar with you and didn't ask me for a recommendation, he directly specified that he wanted you for a divination. I only did 1 divination last week. Has my reputation spread so quickly here? Klein and Kornli turned to look at the man walking towards them. He was dressed in a black suit, held a gold-inlaid wooden staff, and wore a semi-tall top hat, with golden short hair stubbornly peeking out from beneath the brim and a slightly curved nose. You've seen him. Kornli put down the book in his hand and asked softly. In a divination, Klein whispered. Hello, you must be Mr. Joyce, Anna's fiancé. It's a pleasure to see you return safely from the Shamrock. Klein stood up. This is my good friend, Mr. Kornli, a scholar who also has a very deep understanding of mysticism. And a gentleman who might steal your money pouch at any moment. Good afternoon, Mr. Klein, Mr. Kornli. Joyce shook hands with both of them and sat down between them. Before we proceed with the divination, perhaps you could first tell us what happened on the Shamrock. Oh, it was a hellish journey. After we left the port, we unexpectedly encountered the Black Emperor. Fortunately, he had no designs on our lives, he merely took our valuables. I didn't lose much, but during the subsequent journey, the passengers and crew of the Shamrock erupted into fierce infighting, escalating from arguments to brawls. then to drawing revolvers and unsheathing straight swords, slaughtering each other. For those few days, my vision was filled with blood, and people around me fell one after another, their eyes wide open, never to close, their limbs, hearts, and intestines splattered everywhere. Klein nodded sympathetically. It is indeed very fortunate that you survived. Yes, Joyce said, your divination skills are exquisite. Anna speaks highly of your knowledge, praising it as the most worthwhile soul she has ever spent in her life. Actually, my fee is 8 pence, Klein smiled. How may I help you today? Please wait a moment, Mr. Joyce. Your previous statement has piqued my curiosity. I want to know how you survived in such a harsh environment, Kornli asked. Klein also looked at Joyce with curiosity. He too was curious about this question. The presence of a Mr. Triss saved us. He led us to seal the Shamrock's deck leading to the lower cabins with thick wooden planks, found us enough fresh water and food, and at the most difficult times, he led us in chanting slogans, cheering us on, and finally brought us through to the very last minute. Very touching, but I find it strange, Kornli asked in confusion, since Solomon, the king of the 5 seas, did not harm your lives, how did the chaos on the ship occur? It's perfectly normal that you couldn't resist the pirates under the king of the 5 seas, but what happened after they left? In your memory, what happened? You were right, this matter is indeed full of inconsistencies, Joyce frowned. Nast, the king of the 5 seas, left us enough food and water for 5 days. We were preparing to return to port, and then. He suddenly clutched his head in pain, as if he had forgotten something, his teeth clenched tightly, as if something was trying to bore out of his mind, and he needed to forcefully suppress these memories so that these abrupt things wouldn't harm him. It's all right, Mr. Joyce, you don't have to remember these things. Klein gave Kornli a dissatisfied look and used his knowledge of mysticism to comfort Mr. Joyce. What happened to me? Joyce looked at Kornli and Klein, covered in sweat. Why? Currently, your memory has consciously chosen to forget some things, and these things are very important for you to find the truth, Kornli said. I remember when you came, you wanted Mr. Klein to perform a divination, correct? Yes, Joyce said, I have a dream that I need Mr. Klein to interpret. I won't delay you two any longer, Kornli stood up and patted Klein's shoulder. I'm going to get a fresh drink. The psychological suggestion he had just given was enough. Joyce would remember everything with Klein's timely hint. Kornli quietly read for 10 minutes, then saw Joyce hurrying out of the citrine room. Klein followed him towards Kornli with a strange expression, and casually pulled the drowsiness amulet Kornli had given him from his pocket, returning it to Kornli. When did you suspect his psychological state was off? When he came in, his entire aura seemed very chaotic, clearly filled with confusion. Although I don't have too much knowledge of mysticism, I could still see the disturbance in his aura, and he seemed very familiar with the beginning of the whole incident, like he had recited it. Klein nodded. I also thought so, but fortunately, he already knows the whole truth and has gone to the police station to report it. Interested in going to see? Kornli drained his coffee. This is much more interesting than your divination. No, my divination is also very interesting, Klein struggled for a moment. I still want to stay here quietly for a few hours, read some books, and practice my divination skills. Kornli pulled out a triangular dream amulet and quietly placed it between them. What are you doing? Klein's eyes lit up, and he quickly covered the dream amulet with the book in front of Kornli. If we go to the police station now, we can just catch Joyce's statement. Our credentials can give you an opportunity to experiment with dream entering. Kornli raised his right hand. I promise not to interfere with you. But, wouldn't it be better to let the captain handle this? Klein pondered and nodded. I'm curious about using amulets, but this is, after all, a domain of dreams that I'm not familiar with. Little Klein, you're scared, aren't you? We can have the captain wait outside, he won't mind, Kornli smiled. Something like the Shamrock is our job sooner or later. Since we have this opportunity to know the appearance of the culprit and the course of events in advance, it's better to know early. Besides, do you want to see what Nast Solomon, the king of the 5 seas, actually looks like? This is a rare opportunity. This sentence deeply struck Klein's curiosity. All right, Klein nodded. In that case, I'll go find Captain Dunn, and you go to the police station. We'll meet there, Kornli said, standing up. See you in a bit. Walking out, Kornli returned to the team's station and went straight into Captain Dunn's office. Captain Dunn, I have something to report. You mean there might be Beyonders on the Shamrock ship, and the few remaining witnesses are currently speaking with Klein. Dunn put down the Tingen City Family Weekly he was holding, which featured news of the Shamrock returning to port. Yes, according to the witness, he saw the appearance of King of 5 Seas Nast Solomon. Klein and I are very curious, Kornli chuckled. Although I didn't see it with my own eyes, seeing it in a dream seems to make up for a little regret. Dunn's mouth twitched slightly. Since you're willing to sacrifice your rest time, I'll go with you this once. I need to tell you in advance that people from the Holy Church will be here tomorrow afternoon, and it might be very busy in the evening. I know they're bringing a sealed artifact. What is it? Kornli asked, feigning curiosity. Sealed artifact, 2049, can detect people with Antigonus's blood. It's a very targeted sealed artifact with very little danger. Dunn stood up and picked up his coat. Do I need to prepare anything else? Do you just want to see Nast's appearance, or do you need an autograph that can't be taken out of the dream? Let's forget about that, it's mainly to satisfy Klein's curiosity. Oh, and Captain Dunn, I have another request, Kornli said. Let Klein try using the incantation. That's fine, Captain Dunn agreed without hesitation. Fill out an expense report tomorrow. Since you don't know incantation studies yet, have old Neil prepare a backup for you. The two arrived at the police station. Klein was sitting across from Joyce Myers in the interrogation room on the basement floor. Seeing Kornli and Captain Dunn walk in, both parties shook hands. Detective, are you really a detective? Joyce watched as the three simultaneously pulled out their detective badges. A third-level detective and 2 apprentice detectives' badges were stamped with the police station's unique steel seal. He looked at Klein in disbelief. But, half an hour ago, you were still divining my fate. The two are not equivalent, Dunn's calm voice came from across the table. We also pursue pure knowledge. In the club, we are happy to help others, but as those with police badges, we will not let go of any criminal's whereabouts. Joyce nodded. I will help you. What do you need me to do? You need to relax and let Mr. Klein enter your dream. Recall everything from when you encountered the King of 5 Seas, Dunn finished, nodding to Klein. You can begin. Please relax. We can bring you out at any time, Klein gently reassured Joyce, pulled out an incantation from his pocket, and said in Hermes, night. Joyce felt a dizzying sensation. Before him appeared swirling black and white circles of varying sizes, one nested within another. He felt as if he had stumbled into a bottomless abyss, continuously falling downward. All right, Klein supported Joyce. He was surprised to find himself back on the Shamrock. More than a dozen men wearing pirate bandanas had tied the hands of all the crew and passengers behind their backs with ropes, pulling them to a corner of the deck to sit down. Hey, that's me. Joyce looked at himself, being tied up, then looked at Klein in fright, pointing at himself. Detective Klein, what's going on? This is a playback of your dream. We are merely observers. Klein noticed out of the corner of his eye that waves were subtly shifting along the side of the ship, seemingly influenced by Joyce's emotions. You can imagine that you are now a unique actor, appreciating a comedy only you know about from below the stage. Kornli walked over from the side, with Captain Dunn standing behind him. Don't let your emotions fluctuate too much, or we won't see much. Kornli patted Joyce's shoulder. You are very safe now. This is your dream, you can leave at any time. Dunn nodded slightly in approval. This kind of psychological suggestion was very important for the dominant figure in a dream. Kornli seemed to have already mastered the ability to become a guide when he first entered someone else's dream. Everyone, I am King of 5 Seas Nast Solomon. A colossal voice enveloped the entire shamrock. The four of them turned around and saw a gigantic five-masted sailing ship slowly approaching. The pirates who had finished their work knelt on one knee, pledging their loyalty to the Black Throne at the bow of the ship. On the deck of the Black King throne, leaning against the cabin, stood a mottled stone chair 2 to 3 meters high. Sitting on the chair was a colossal figure comparable to an ancient giant. He had black whiskers just past his neck, wore a tall, pointed tower crown, and was draped in a magnificent black robe with silver trim. His facial features were hard and profound, full of majesty, making one instinctively want to lower their head. Since Joyce was just an ordinary person, he couldn't feel the soul pressure that only Beyonders experienced. Currently, he was merely watching with curiosity, truly observing everything as an outsider. How strong is the other party? Klein leaned close to Dunn and asked in a low voice. I can't sense it. Dunn looked at Klein with a mix of amusement and exasperation. After all, this is just an ordinary person's. Solomon's head subtly glanced over. Dunn felt a tremor in his heart, and large spatial fragments appeared between him and Solomon. He clenched his hands tightly, forcefully using his nightmare power to stabilize Joyce's dream. Praise the goddess. Dunn made the goddess's symbol on his chest, followed closely by Kornli and Klein. What happened? Klein asked, still shaken. It's nothing, Captain Dunn smiled. Our curiosity attracted the other party's attention. Now you can have your wish fulfilled. King of Five Seas Nast Solomon remembered our faces. Klein, I was just curious. Continue the dream. Don't forget our original intention, Dunn said, clasping his hands behind his back. If there's any problem, I will forcefully take over this dream with my nightmare power until we know all the details. This statement echoed in Klein and Kornli's ears. The two nodded slightly and followed behind Joyce, witnessing everything unfold. It was the round-faced, innocent-looking youth, Triss, who had caused the tragedy on the Shamrock. Everyone saw Triss standing beside a middle-aged man, tempting him with a demon's voice to raise the sharp blade in his hand and plunge it forcefully into the girl beneath him. His eyes were filled with mockery and sarcasm. He then pointed at several other men nearby, watching them push a mother and child into the sea, letting the waves swallow their frail bodies. Everyone saw Triss lock the stairwell leading to the deck, whispering seductive words into everyone's ears. Men picked up weapons within reach, daggers, rapiers, and attacked each other. Warm blood flowed freely on the deck, bones and flesh scattered in the air. Triss sat on the stairs, clapping excitedly. This bastard. All right, I believe we have obtained all the truth. Dunn nodded. The scene before everyone's eyes blurred, and they returned to the police station's basement. The slightly damp, moldy smell in the air made Klein and Kornli furrow their brows slightly. Mr. Joyce, this case involves too many people. According to procedure, I need to inform the relevant police stations about this matter. Please wait here for a few hours, Dunn said. Okay, it's my honor to help those innocent people who died. Joyce nodded. I will cooperate with all your work. Dunn gave a look, and Klein and Kornli followed him out of the room. Captain, what's next? You two go upstairs and find 2 police officers. Have them go to the nearest church of the God of Steam and Machinery and Storm Lord Church to find members of the Machinery Hivemind team and Punisher's team to summarize the case. This is a major case, Dunn said. You two can go home now. The case occurred nearly a week ago. There isn't much we can do. Cooperating with the police station to issue notices and inform all checkpoints is the most we can do. You two did well. In that case, Captain, we'll leave first. Kornli nodded and led Klein upstairs. Okay, sir, we'll go now. Kornli relayed Captain Dunn's order, watched the 2 police officers quickly take a carriage to notify the other 2 teams, and then bid farewell to Klein. Good night, Klein. Kornli left the police station. It was already past 9 in the evening. He found a coffee shop on the street, went in, and ordered a coffee, a sandwich, and a pea stew. Today's guidance work went well, but such guidance could only be done occasionally. Long-term guidance would easily be noticed by Captain Dunn and Klein. He drank his coffee in large gulps, reviewing his every action today, confirming that there were no errors for now, and finally returned home to sleep peacefully. At 9 o'clock the next morning, Kornli arrived at Blackthorn Security Company at the usual time. Fry was there even earlier than him. Having guarded the Chinese gate all night, his complexion appeared even paler, as if he hadn't been in the sun for several years. Your attire would be perfect for playing a vampire, Kornli quipped. That kind of noble creature that only lives underground and survives by sucking blood isn't suitable for me, Fry sighed. I'm going to find a quiet coffin to lie in for a few hours. You really sleep in a coffin? Leonard, tell me Fry is joking. Kornli watched Leonard walk in. He just told me he was going to find a quiet coffin to lie in for a few hours. Haven't you seen his home? Leonard looked at him strangely. Fry's home is very dilapidated, but his bed is surrounded by the best wood used for coffins. It's said that the scent it emits can make people fall asleep very quickly. He once said that just that double bed cost over 100 gold pounds. Over 100 gold pounds, double bed, coffin, double coffin. Just as Captain Dunn accommodates your hobby for corpses, he has always been very respectful of Fry's hobby. Leonard brought over 2 cups and poured the coffee powder from Kornli's table into them. Are you ready for tonight's activity? Activity, you mean? Kornli suddenly remembered that Captain Dunn had mentioned that the people from Backlund would bring 2049 to Tingen City today to assist the team in finding information about Antigonus's notebook and Riel Bieber's whereabouts. Riel Bieber. That's right, they're already nearby. They'll arrive in Tingen City in the late afternoon, almost evening. Captain Dunn pushed the door open and interrupted their conversation. Captain, how was last night's search? Leonard ran a hand through his hair and handed the untouched cup of coffee from Kornli's table to Captain Dunn. He got away. Captain Dunn's expression remained unchanged as he drank the coffee in one gulp and set the cup down. The Punishers, Machinery Hivemind, and Nighthawks, a total of 6 people, tracked him to Iron Cross Street and found his temporary residence, but he vanished as if into thin air. Neither Beander methods nor normal investigation found any trace of him. I also heard the search last night at home. Klein pushed the door open and entered. Do you need my help with divination? Dunn shook his head. The Machinery Hivemind team has a seer, who is a senior Beander similar to Old Neil. He has used all mystical methods and still hasn't found any trace of Triss. He'll always leave a clue, Captain, Klein comforted. Captain Dunn nodded. Did you tell them too? Leonard. I was just about to, and you came in, Captain. Leonard spread his right hand. Everyone for tonight is here. Klein, tonight we need your strength to track Antigonus's notebook. Kornli, your observational skills for details are very strong. We also need you tonight. Dunn picked up Leonard's still full cup of coffee and drank it in one gulp again. Captain Dunn seemed very thirsty today. It looked like he was extremely busy last night. Okay, Captain, Leonard and Klein replied simultaneously. Captain, what should we prepare for tonight? Klein couldn't help but feel a little nervous. This was his first time participating in a large group activity. Dunn rubbed his nose. I forgot to say. I knew it, Captain, you must have forgotten something. He picked up a note from the table, wrote 2 sentences on it, and handed it to Kornli. Go find Old Neil and have him open the relevant document permissions for you, especially the documents related to 249's abilities. Okay, Captain. Kornli watched Captain Dunn walk into the adjacent office. Let's go, Klein. All right, both of you follow me to the archives. Old Neil took the note Captain Dunn handed him, glanced at it, and led the 2 men to open the thick iron door of the archives. He wrote Kornli and Klein's names in the sign-in book on the wall nearby and took out 4 thick dossiers, handing them to the 2 of them. These cannot be taken out. If you get thirsty, you can only drink plain water, no other beverages. Try not to spill any liquid on the documents, Old Neil instructed. My room has coffee and black tea. As long as one person stays in the archives, the door can remain open, and you can take turns going out to drink, he whispered to the 2 men, winking at them kindly, and quietly returned to his room. What a good person. Kornli scanned the documents before him, especially the introduction to 2049, the puppet that cheats its master, reading 10 lines at a glance. He quickly finished 3 documents, with only the one in front of Klein remaining. Klein was absorbed in the content of the documents. Kornli silently left the archives and went to old Neil's room to mooch some coffee. You finished so quickly. Old Neil looked at Kornli in surprise. Kornli couldn't say that the knowledge he possessed far exceeded the children's level of mysticism texts old Neil provided, so he pointed at the clock on the wall. It was almost lunchtime. Old Neil smiled understandingly. I heard you have a mission this afternoon. Remember to eat more. That's right, Kornli nodded. I'm very hungry right now. At 1 p.m., Kornli ate a generous 10-pence bento box. After eating his fill, he was already feeling a bit drowsy and was half dozing on the table when Captain Dunn walked in. They've arrived. Kornli immediately became wide awake, called Klein over, and Captain Dunn led them to his office. You follow me and do this action, keep doing it, absolutely do not stop. Remember, absolutely do not stop, this concerns your safety. While speaking, Dunn bent his arm, then extended it, then bent it again, repeating this cycle without interruption. Can this speed be slowed down a bit? Kornli kept his eyes fixed on Captain Dunn's elbow-bending speed, carefully imitating him. This speed is already the limit, Captain Dunn said. This speed allows us to know if you are in danger, and if you are, we can rescue you quickly. If you get tired, just switch arms. Okay. Kornli and Klein stopped talking, carefully following Dunn along the path to the crossroads, arriving at the guardroom outside Channy's gate. Captain Dunn turned sideways and pushed open the door with his body. Kornli and Klein mimicked his action, pushing open the door with their bodies. Inside, Leonard, wearing a hat, was performing the repetitive elbow-bending motion with 3 other people. Seeing Kornli and Klein enter, he winked at them in greeting. This is Ms. Loretta, a Sequence 8 gravedigger, and also an excellent marksman. The black-haired lady, around 30 years old, nodded kindly to Klein and Kornli. She wasn't wearing a hat and was dressed in clothes similar to men's attire, a black jacket, white shirt, black tight-fitting trousers, and matching leather boots, with a slight upward curve at the corners of her mouth. Al Hassan, an old fellow like me. Borgia. Dunn pointed to the last Nighthawk. Hello, 3 of you. Kornli and Klein nodded to the 3 people. We are still new and don't yet know how to perfectly synchronize a handshake with the elbow-bending motion in this situation. Nobody knows, Al Hassan said with a smile while bending his elbow. Congratulations, you've found a troublesome topic in the Beander world. In Kornli's eyes, Al Hassan's elbow-bending speed suddenly became very slow, as if playing frame by frame like in a movie. Borgia pushed him on the back, which made his elbow-bending speed return to normal. Let's go, this isn't a good place for small talk, Captain Dunn said. Leonard, you drive. All right, Captain Dunn. Leonard put away his cynical expression. You all be careful. He walked out of the office while bending his elbow. Al Hassan stood up and picked up a black iron leather case from beside him. One corner of the case was engraved with stars and a crimson crescent moon, representing the Evernight goddess. A weighty, solid feeling emanated from within. The security of this case seemed to be no less than that of a bank vault. Thump, thump. 2 violent thuds of something kicking the case came from inside. This puppet that cheats its master seemed to sense the presence of people nearby and gradually became frantic. Quiet, you little fellow. Al Hassan froze, his movements becoming sluggish. Ms. Loretta pushed him, and Kornli and Klein were also pushed by Captain Dunn at the same time, only then feeling a return to normalcy. The elbow-bending motion isn't difficult, anyone can do it hundreds of times. But the hard part is maintaining the movement constantly, without stopping for even a second. That's the most difficult thing. Klein, feeling the oppressive power of a sealed artifact for the first time, had tiny beads of sweat seeping from his face. Don't worry, we're here, Kornli gently reassured him, then followed Captain Dunn onto the carriage. Because of Kornli and Klein's presence, Leonard found the largest carriage available. The spacious carriage could comfortably seat 6 people without feeling crowded. Ms. Loretta sat beside Leonard, acting as the coachman, and the two chatted intimately, seemingly not like it was their first meeting. The two of them. Kornli looked at Ms. Loretta leaning on Leonard's shoulder and asked in a low, curious voice. "Young people's business, we don't want to know too much," Al-Hassan said with a chuckle. So Leonard's flirtatious reputation had already reached Backlund. Kornli thought to himself while doing the elbow-bending exercise, trying with all his might to make it an instinct, so that if he needed to fight, he wouldn't have to worry about his left arm. Turning something into instinct requires extremely precise control over the body's muscles and blood vessels. Borgia seemed to discern the action Kornli wanted to perform and said in a slightly hoarse voice. "Perhaps people of the secret supplicant pathway could do it. I'm just a marauder, and I don't yet have a way to control every blood vessel and muscle in my body." Kornli sighed, seeing the carriage stop at Riel Bieber's doorstep. Welcome to Fanfic Audiobook, your go-to place for immersive audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. And please support the author by link in description. Thump, 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 thump. The scamming puppet inside the suitcase seemed to have smelled the bloodline of the Antigonus family and became increasingly agitated. Klein keenly felt Captain Dunn's elbow movements becoming slower. Just as he was about to pat Captain Dunn's shoulder, his own eyes began to move in a jerky, movie-like fashion. Could it be that he was also affected? Kornli maintained his posture and gently kicked Klein's shin with his knee. Across from them, Al-Hassan gently nudged Dunn Smith with the cane in his hand, and both of their eyes simultaneously regained clarity. "Captain Al, there's a presence of the Antigonus family here," Ms. Loretta called out loudly from outside. "We can confirm that the missing Riel Bieber is of the Antigonus family bloodline." "All right, next step." Al-Hassan walked down from the carriage with the suitcase and looked around. There were no pedestrians passing by. "Everyone, pay attention to the condition of others around you." He squatted down and unscrewed the knob on the surface of the tin box. In everyone's gaze, a normal-sized, palm-sized, brownish object gradually appeared before Klein and the others. It had obvious elbow, finger, and knee joints. It was covered in brown, oily cloth strips, and its face was painted with red and yellow clown oil paint. It was a strange-looking puppet. I thought. Klein was about to say something when the puppet suddenly turned its head and glanced at Klein, its mouth slowly splitting into a mysterious smile. "Hey, he likes you," Al-Hassan said with a laugh. "Don't worry, this is a normal reaction." "No, this isn't a normal reaction." The scamming puppet sensed the seer potion within Klein's body, which is why it reacted so strangely, Kornli thought to himself. As long as the Antigonus family's notebook is still nearby and Riel Bieber is still in Tingen City, this cute little fellow will be able to find it. "Drive, Leonard." Al-Hassan squatted down and placed the puppet in the middle of the carriage floor. The puppet slowly got up and crawled towards the northeast. To the right. Forward. Turn left. Al-Hassan loudly issued commands, and Leonard controlled the carriage to arrive at the fastest speed near a cluster of warehouses in the north of the city. After confirming that Riel Bieber was inside the white warehouse in front of them, Al-Hassan quickly opened the tin box again. Dunn agilely extended his free right hand and stuffed the puppet back into the box. Al-Hassan squeezed the box tightly with his legs, and Borgia, beside him, extended his left hand to tighten the two clasps of the box. Their other hands swung back and forth as if they weren't their own, yet their coordination was as if they were one person. Thump, 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 thump. The box vibrated violently, and the tin exterior slightly deformed. Klein could imagine the aggrieved look of the puppet inside the box, like a child whose favorite lollipop had been snatched from their hand. "We're here," Captain Dunn exhaled. "Get out of the carriage, prepare to retrieve that Antigonus family notebook." "We prepared this." Borgia pulled out a smaller box from his pregnant, which looked like a replica of the tin box. "Just put the notebook in it once you get it. A safety box. I thought we stopped using these 10 years ago," Captain Dunn said thoughtfully, looking at the box. One just happened to be spare, Al Hassan exhaled. You know what I mean. The carriage suddenly fell silent. Everyone disembarked one by one without a word, walking towards the warehouse, flexing and extending their arms like a row of black-clad madmen. Captain, Kornli asked out of nowhere, is the range of 249's influence only 5 meters? If there's someone within 5 meters. Dunn nodded. The group passed an uneven stack of boxes. After they passed, Kornli's figure flickered out from behind the boxes. In his memory, besides Riel Bieber, there should also be a secret order member hiding here. Where could this guy be hiding? Kornli clung to the back of the team like a gecko, about 10 meters away, neither too far nor too close. He heard Dunn instructing Klein to perform a divination, and his eyes were fixed on his surroundings. On a box 20 meters away, illuminated by the crimson moonlight, he saw someone peeking out. The person was a man in a black tailcoat and a semi-high silk top hat. He was hidden on top of the box like a snake, and the clothes on his back absorbed the surrounding night light like a stage costume. You're the one. Kornli watched as the opponent extended his left hand, intending to launch a sneak attack. He lightly dipped a crossbow bolt into a paralysis poison bottle with his left hand, aimed at the opponent's shoulder, and a black crossbow bolt shot out from the darkness, directly hitting the opponent's shoulder. So painful. A tingling sensation came from the opponent's body. The clown man endured the intense discomfort within his body and hurriedly launched a fireball from his left hand, hitting the outer perimeter of the team. Danger, everyone pay attention. Al Hassan shouted, forcefully flinging the box with his right hand, landing it perfectly in an open space. Borgia, Ms. Loretta, the box. The two quickly ran to a spot 7 meters from the box, looking around vigilantly. Kornli agilely pressed his left hand on a pile of oil drums in front of him, and his entire body leapt into the air. He pulled out his despair revolver with his right hand and fired. Bang, bang, bang. The bullets, like miniature spears, enveloped the person dressed as a clown. His goal was definitely not to kill, but to control the opponent's range of movement. If the box containing the scamming puppet hadn't been blocking his direct path, forcing him to detour over 20 meters to get there, he would have been absolutely confident in killing that magician on the spot. For now, just trapping him would be enough. Kornli swung his right hand violently, accurately throwing 2 baby-sized drowsiness amulets to the left and right of the magician's previous position, calmly uttering Hermes in his mouth, Evernight. The entire incident happened in an instant. Dunn only saw a fireball. By the time he was ready to retaliate, a large drowsiness domain belonging to the Evernight goddess blossomed 40 meters from his position. Within this domain, he could feel a figure struggling to shake his right hand, trying to pull something out of his pregnant. Bang, bang, bang. Bang, bang. 2 sudden rounds of bullets interrupted Dunn's thoughts. Kornli quickly ran over, pulled out his handcuffs, bound the person's hands together, then drew his belt and tightly bound the person's feet as well. A little help, Captain. Kornli looked up and smiled. Kornli, what are you doing? Captain Dunn watched with a strange expression as Kornli stripped the man of all his clothes, pulling out matches, paper figures, and other things he had never seen before from the pockets and placing them beside him. Just in case. Kornli pulled out the crossbow bolt from the man's shoulder, dipped it again in his small bottle, and lightly drew a bloodline on his arm. I just saw that fellow conjure a fist-sized fireball with his bare hands. This paralyzing poison's effect on ordinary people only lasts 3 to 5 minutes at most. If he wakes up and escapes, we might have to spend more time and effort. Right now, his crime is merely attacking us, not to the point of causing death. Our mission today, as Antigonus's family notes, this person is not our primary target. Captain Dunn nodded. You're right, but this. He pointed at the man, now stripped down to only his underwear, waved his right hand in the air, then let it drop powerlessly. No, Mr. Kornli is doing this for a good reason. Al Hassan walked over, looking at Kornli's actions with approval. This man's clown attire reminds me of something. You know we have a potion formula called Seer. The Holy Cathedral has the subsequent Sequence 8 and Sequence 7 formulas. The name of the Sequence 8 is Clown. What is the name of Sequence 7, then? Klein seized the opportunity to ask. Magician, Al-Hassan smiled. Anyway, Mr. Kornli did the right thing. The two of you are responsible for guarding this fellow. Al and I, the two old guys, will go into the warehouse to investigate. Klein was overjoyed to have obtained the names of the Sequence 8 and Sequence 7 potions. Borgia and Ms. Loretta can come with us, but will this affect this fellow? Kornli pointed downwards with his hand. He will turn into a puppet, Captain Dunn said. They are the best choice to guard the box in 2049, but that leaves only Al, Leonard, and me as the remaining combatants. And me, Captain. Kornli stood up. Klein can keep this fellow asleep with the crossbow bolt, he can handle it alone. I can go ahead as a scout to take a look. He would be alone, so there should be an opportunity for divination. He could obtain the potion formula and some secret knowledge that others were unaware of. Klein was pleasantly surprised, but he didn't show it on his face. Dunn and Al exchanged glances, then nodded. In that case, Leonard will go with you to scout. Here, Klein. Kornli carefully handed the crossbow bolt to Klein. Place it on the ground. When you use it, just make sure to break his skin. You can also punch him. Thank you. Klein took the crossbow bolt and placed it beside him. Kornli and Leonard silently nodded to each other in the air, then, one after the other, used the ground obstacles to approach the warehouse. Your binding technique just now was good, Leonard suddenly said. Are you sure you haven't learned it from anyone? I'll take that as a compliment. Kornli smiled faintly. It sounds like there's no sound here. A puppet. Before he could finish, an inhuman shriek came from inside the warehouse, as if the entity within sensed their approach. Thump thump thump, thump thump thump. Violent thumping sounds came from the box containing 2049, echoing the shrieks from the warehouse. The 2049 box rolled wildly on the ground. Borgia, doing elbow bends, exchanged a glance with Ms. Loretta, and the two of them jointly moved a wooden barrel from the side, placing it directly on top of the box containing 2049. Who? Heavy breathing sounds entered everyone's ears. Leonard reached out and stopped Kornli's forward steps. No need to go over. R2049 has already made contact with the fellow inside. Boom. The warehouse door flew outwards like paper, scattering in all directions. A half-thigh wrapped in gray-black overalls flew out from inside, soaring past Leonard and Kornli's eyes. Kornli and Leonard simultaneously exchanged a horrifying glance, seeing both fear and disbelief in each other's eyes. One thing after another flew out. First, blood spilling, eyeballs with dilated pupils, then earlobes that looked as if they had been torn off alive, followed by a still-beating half-heart, and intestines filled with yellowish-brown matter. Kornli and Leonard instinctively pulled out their revolvers from their holsters at the same time, observing their surroundings with their peripheral vision, while trying to hold their breath to prevent any liquid from suddenly flying out of the warehouse. Whoosh. The sound became slower and slower, but the commotion grew louder. Kornli raised his right hand. What should we do, Captain? Thump 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 thump. The box containing 2049 actually broke free from the restraint of the huge wooden barrel. Borgia promptly sat on the iron box, using his nearly 220 pounds of weight to press down on it firmly. Whoosh. Whoosh. A grayish-white color filled the entire warehouse door. Kornli decisively raised his despair and fired a shot inside. The bullet slowly dropped to the ground as if hitting a sponge, making a crisp, click sound. Kornli did not continue firing. He watched as the warehouse door was torn apart like paper by that grayish-white object. Although he had prepared himself mentally before coming, the shock and coldness still filled his entire body when he saw the physical entity. It was a giant monster over 2 meters tall, its limb joints presenting an unsettling reverse joint structure, as if its entire skeleton had been brutally broken by some invisible force. Pale bone spikes pierced through its skin and were exposed, like deformed branches growing from a dead tree. Its body was covered in deep, crisscrossing wrinkles, and grayish-white tissue constantly oozed mucus, looking exactly like a human brain stripped of its epidermis. All of his joints were exposed in an unnatural, anti-human way, yet his entire body achieved a hellish balance. He slowly dragged his legs, or rather, the organ tissue that could be called legs. Damn it, Riel Bieber, what happened? Whoosh. Who? That monster, or rather, Riel Bieber, took a deep breath, turned his head to look at Borgia in the distance. The latter felt a deathly aura slowly lock onto his position through Riel Bieber, and trembled as he looked at Ms. Loretta beside him. Damn it, save me. Bang, 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 bang bang bang. Captain Dunn and Kornli's pistols fired continuously, and demon-breaking bullets rained down on Riel as if they were free. The demon-breaking bullets could only create a small hole in his body, and yellowish-green pus slowly dripped from his body onto the ground, transforming into yellowish-green maggots that rolled around. This guy is out of control, Captain Dunn said to Ms. Loretta beside him. You switch positions with Leonard. It seems to be a monster of the undead. Try to find its weakness. Leonard quickly swapped places with Ms. Loretta, who, now freed, shook her arms, which had been bent for a long time. Her eyes grew dim, then pale, and finally became colorless, as if she had entered the realm of the undead, searching for Riel's weakness in another dimension. At the same time, Captain Dunn and Al Hassan opened their mouths, and faint lullabies were chanted from their lips. Ah, the peril of fear, the crimson hope. At least one thing is true, this life flies by. One thing is true, the rest are lies. The flower blooms once then bids the world goodbye. ... A wave of weariness enveloped Riel. This sudden weariness made the monster, who had completely forgotten what fatigue felt like, sense a threatening power. He opened his mouth, and a power imperceptible to ordinary people radiated outwards from it. Hoo-ah! Everyone was sent flying by this force. Klein desperately gripped the handles of nearby cargo, his feet level with the ground, like a parallel line abruptly rising from the ground. The man beside him, now only in his underwear, was completely blown away by the enormous sound wave. His head hit the wooden crate beside him with a bang, and crimson blood left a long arc on the ground, clearly losing all signs of life. Damn it, I didn't even get a chance to divine. As the sound wave subsided, Klein stood firm on the ground, and out of the corner of his eye, he saw a familiar figure agilely climb onto Riel's pale head through the gaps in the cargo. Kornli. Captain Dunn's anxious voice came from nearby. Riel's steps, attempting to rush towards 2049, faltered slightly. It took his brain a few seconds to realize what was happening. He shook his head vigorously, and the exposed bones on his hands swayed around Kornli. Kornli desperately gripped a bone on the head with his right hand, while his left hand pulled out his paralysis poison and deadly poison, throwing them together into a visible crack in the head. The two co-originating potent poisons reacted violently in an instant. Riel's steps became wobbly, his center of gravity gradually lowered, and a foul odor emanated from his body. Kornli took a deep breath towards the sky, lightly pushed off with his feet, and directly squatted on Riel's head. His hands quickly took out the remaining ammunition from his pocket, twisted them hard, and completely sprinkled the gunpowder inside onto the crack in Riel's head. This guy should be thinking with his head, right? Captain Al, I found its weakness, it's in the lower abdomen. Luota's eyes cleared, and she suddenly saw Kornli standing unsteadily on Riel Bieber's head, pulling out his despair revolver. Everyone, take cover. Kornli shouted. 3, 2, 1, bang. The last 4 ordinary bullets from despair, carrying Kornli's fury, shot into Riel's head. The bullets ignited the gunpowder inside, and the enormous thrust sent Kornli more than 10 meters away. He lightly rolled on the ground and quickly pulled a nearby tarpaulin over himself. Bang! A large amount of body parts sprayed out from Riel Bieber's body. Luota, ignoring the need to dodge, quickly passed by Leonard, snatching Leonard's coat to cover her head, and rushed towards Riel Bieber's location. Leonard. The gunpowder burned Riel Bieber's body, and large amounts of fatty flesh transformed into blood vessels and internal organs under the effect of the Antigonus family diary. Luo lunged forward with her feet, using the momentum to slide between Riel Bieber's legs, and forcefully extended her right hand into the gap in his fat. Hiss. Kornli and Leonard, who had stood up nearby, quickly ran over. Each of them grabbed one of Ms. Loretta's feet, lifted it slightly, waiting for her command. Go. Ms. Loretta suddenly spoke, and her right hand slowly emerged from Riel's intestines, holding a blood-stained notebook within a section of intestine. The two men forcefully dragged her out from under Riel Bieber, and supporting her on either side, quickly ran towards Dunn's location. A horrific scream echoed deep within everyone's souls. The greasy, lubricant-like cry originated from the tin box, which vibrated violently once, then fell silent. Boom. Crack. A violent collapsing sound came from behind the three people. Kornli turned his head and saw Riel Bieber's body, or rather, the mutated parts of it, scattered on the ground like a collapsed dam, turning into countless tiny pieces of flesh, emitting a greasy, foul, and unpleasant smell. It's over. Al-Hassan walked over and lightly patted Ms. Loretta's coat with his gloved right hand, knocking half a section of intestine onto the ground. Kornli's right eye twitched slightly, and he took a step forward, smoothly drawing the revolver from Al's waist and aiming it behind Klein. Squat. Klein's eyes lit up slightly, and he squatted down without hesitation. The pistol in Kornli's hand quickly fired, shooting behind Klein. Bang! A black arm slowly fell to the ground, the large fireball in its hand extinguishing. A hole caused by a bullet appeared in the center of its eyes, and brain matter flowed out onto the ground. That guy wasn't dead yet. I watched his blood spill all over the place. Phew, Kornli sighed in relief, handing the revolver to Al-Hassan. Thank you, Mr. Al. Damn it, how did you find out? Klein looked at Kornli, still shaken. Kornli patted Klein on the shoulder without speaking. Where did you find a combatant with such exquisite skill? Al-Hassan walked up to Dunn, pulling out a cigarette from his pocket. 2 weeks ago, Mr. Kornli was still a civilian. A barely perceptible smile appeared at the corner of Dunn's mouth. Damn it, tell me, he was a civilian 2 weeks ago. Al-Hassan took a puff from his cigarette. A civilian can discover hidden enemies in combat, stand alone on an out-of-control monster, create a massive explosion to buy us enough time, and even find guys hiding behind teammates, ready to ambush. That's right. Dunn took out his pipe and lit it. He is indeed excellent. Hey, Captain Al, Kornli is one of us. Leonard walked over in his shirt, the cold night making him shiver involuntarily. Ms. Loretta wiped her hands on Leonard's coat, then handed the coat to Leonard with disgust. You can keep it, it's a beautiful memento of our second encounter. Leonard touched the brim of his hat but did not take his coat. Indeed, a truly excellent talent. Al-Hassan nodded, pulled a cigarette from his pocket, and handed it to Kornli. Have one, you're the busiest person tonight. Thanks, Captain Al. Kornli lit his cigarette from the flame and exhaled. Tonight was truly a heart-stopping night. He knew most of what was going to happen, but he lacked sufficient ability, and Klein almost had an accident. By the way, what did you use to create that explosion? Leonard asked, folding his arms. Did you bring something we don't know about? Kornli pulled open his coat with his left hand. 20 empty bullet drums hung sparsely on his tailcoat. 1, 2, 3, Leonard's vision went dark. You brought over 100 bullets for a mission. If I had a high-pressure steam rifle, I would have brought that too, Kornli replied without hesitation. In the night sky, everyone present burst into laughter simultaneously. Hey, what's wrong with that? Kornli didn't think there was any problem. It's better than one of us lying on the ground, right? That's right. Captain Dunn nodded. Leonard, you should learn from Kornli's serious attitude. All right. Leonard raised his hands, speechless. Let's clean up. Captain Dunn, this is the Antigonus family's notebook. Ms. Loretta walked over, holding the notebook by its spine with both hands, seemingly very disgusted with the notebook that had just come out of the intestines. Captain Dunn opened the notebook and flipped through a few pages by moonlight. This should be it. Captain, why are you looking at that thing? Captain Dunn put the notebook into the black box, then handed it to the trembling Leonard. There's no danger around now. You can take them back. Both 2049 and this notebook can be placed behind the Chinese gate for now. Understood, Captain. Leonard took a deep breath. Borgia, will you drive later? Understood. Borgia watched Leonard walk over, bending his elbow, and their captain Al-Hassan also walked over. The three of them opened the leather case simultaneously. 2049 lay quietly inside, the paint on its eyes slightly flaking due to the intense activity earlier, but the Antigonus family's notebook was completely isolated by the black box. It could no longer sense the notebook's presence, as quiet as a true puppet. You go first, and call a carriage for me from the nearby police station. Captain Dunn watched the large carriage, which Leonard and the four others had jumped onto, slowly leave, and he breathed a sigh of relief. He walked towards the dead man, lit his pipe, and rummaged through the body by the light of the flame. Finally, he stood up, holding a crystal similar to a gem. In the center of the crystal was a flowing, colorful liquid, constantly attracting Kornli's and Klein's eyes as Captain Dunn moved from side to side. This is, Kornli asked, feigning ignorance. The remaining part of the Beander potion for sequence 8 feet clown, or sequence 7 feet magician, Captain Dunn murmured. He took out his tobacco pouch, stuffed a bit of tobacco into his pipe, then poured out the remaining tobacco and put the Beander characteristic inside. If you need it, this item can replace the main ingredient of a Beander potion, but it's best not to use it. Captain Dunn looked at Klein. There's a very small chance it contains parts of the deceased person's personality. If you can find low-sequence Beander potions, it's better to mix them yourself. Understood, Captain. Kornli casually stuffed the man's wallet into his belt. Captain Dunn chuckled. Take the body back for Fry to handle. The two of you, come with me to see the scene inside. The three walked into the warehouse. In the northeast corner of the warehouse, Captain Dunn found a ritual covered in large amounts of human fat and blood, with scattered white bones all over the ground. I don't understand it. Klein and Dunn both shook their heads. Kornli saw the two looking at him, stepped back, and spread his hands. I'm a combatant, Captain. According to my estimation, that Antigonus family's notebook found a distant descendant of its own, provided him with some secret knowledge, trying to make him absorb the knowledge, but his bloodline couldn't suppress the knowledge provided by the notebook, thus leading to him losing control. Captain Dunn smoked his pipe. That's the only way to understand it. You're right, Captain. Kornli heard the sound of carriage wheels rolling over the ground. Soon, several police officers, covering their noses, ran in from outside. I am Detective Dunn. Captain Dunn showed his identification. Go to the nearby church and get all the holy water you can find to wash the ground, bury the insects and trash. No, burning would be better. We'll take that body. Yes, Detective, sir. The leading two-star police officer nodded, walked out the door, blew his whistle, and loudly issued commands to his subordinates. Dunn walked towards the remains of the corpse, rummaged through it with his hand, and pulled out a grayish-white object. This was the spiritual part of Riel Bieber that remained. Kornli took off his hat and handed it over. Captain Dunn nodded, put the object into the hat, clenched his right hand, and walked towards the carriage. Hat? Klein asked quietly. You forgot, all damaged combat items can be reimbursed. Kornli lightly nudged Klein with his elbow. You should go back and take old Neil's famous first lesson for civilians. Kornli looked at Klein. It's absolutely worth it. 3 people boarded the carriage, taking the corpse with them. Kornli drove the carriage, slowly departing. Suddenly, he felt something in the corner of his eye. On the roof of another warehouse in the distance, a head peeked up and down, seemingly looking in their direction. That should have been the other person sent by the secret order. Seeing their companion had died, they remained hidden in the shadows without acting, allowing him to escape a calamity. Today, death did not stand behind you. Kornli drove the carriage and slowly stopped it in front of St. Selena Cathedral. A hesitant light appeared in Dun's eyes. Why are we stopping here? This place also leads to Channy's Gate, and I just remembered something. Kornli took a silver box from his hand. I happened to grab a few extra cigarettes from Al Hassan's hand just now and forgot to return the pack to him. I remember you said they would be staying in the rooms behind the cathedral tonight. Klein tried his best to hold back his laughter. Captain Dun shook his head helplessly. Since that's the case, we'll go back through the cathedral's basement. Klein, you know the way, right? I'll go first. Klein got off the carriage. Kornli followed behind him and the captain, entering the Grand Cathedral, and casually dropped the bolt of the cathedral door with a click. Kornli. Captain Dun watched Al Hassan, Ms. Loretta, Borgia, and Leonard approach him in an encircling manner, his right hand on the holster at his waist, the buttons on the holster already undone. Captain, are you still yourself? Leonard asked with a suspicious tone. What are you doing? Of course, I'm still myself, Dun Smith, your captain. Captain Dun's cane lightly tapped the ground, and the concealed rapier slowly slid out. If you want to do this, you'd better give me a reason. Captain Dun's face turned ashen. A reason convincing enough to persuade me. Captain, everyone just saw you open that notebook from the Antigonus family. Kornli casually took Klein's cane and, with a gentle push of his arm, pushed Klein behind a prayer pew. This way, if the captain lost control, he wouldn't need to look after Klein. Captain, you are still our captain. We now need to monitor your behavior. Please do not resist, Leonard said in a low voice. He and Al Hassan exchanged glances and simultaneously opened their mouths. A melodious song emanated from their mouths. A trace of dark gray aura visibly appeared above Captain Dun's head. The rapier in his hand unsheathed like lightning, stabbing towards Leonard without hesitation. Beside him, an identical rapier passed by, taking Dun's move with a flamboyant flourish. This old fellow's rapier skills are top-notch in the entire Nighthawks team. Al Hassan raised his left hand, and the rapier in his right hand fiercely attacked Dun's direction. The rapiers crossed between the two, emitting sparks. I'll try my best not to hurt him. Al had just finished speaking when Captain Dun, with a strange angle, thrust the rapier in his right hand directly into the guard. He lightly flicked it, and the rapier flew into the air, straight into the 5-meter-high ceiling beam, where it tremblingly stuck. Damn it. Al shook his right wrist. Normally, I could at least fight him for 10 minutes. Do you really want to lay hands on your captain? Dun watched his subordinate slowly close in, his right hand unhesitatingly reaching for the gun pouch at his waist, but finding it empty. Kornli opened the cylinder of his revolver, and bullets dropped to the ground, making crisp sounds. He had already taken the captain's personal weapon. Go. Leonard sighed and was the first to charge forward. As the team member who had been with Dun the longest, he knew Dun's fighting abilities well, and also knew that to control Captain Dun, a brutal beating was unavoidable. It wouldn't be appropriate for others to step in either. Bang! Captain Dun and Leonard exchanged blows, fist to flesh, their rough black trench coats rustling loudly in the Grand Cathedral. Al Hassan gave Ms. Loretta a look, and large barrels of holy water were slowly moved in by the cathedral's divine servants. HMPH, holy water, what's the use of this thing? Captain Dun's eyes were bloodshot, and the speed of his fists grew faster and faster. Leonard, being cautious, retreated step by step. Al Hassan had already bandaged his hand wound. The two, one on the left and one on the right, forced Captain Dun towards the holy water barrels. You two won't succeed. Captain Dun's eyes blazed with anger. A dark figure rushed from the side, passing through Al Hassan and Leonard, directly embracing Captain Dun. With a powerful thrust of his legs, he and Captain Dun crashed directly into the holy water barrel. Rise. Ms. Loretta slowly raised her hands on the second-floor railing. The divine servants and several priests drew the symbol of the Evernight goddess, little stars, on their chests with their right hands, singing verses from the Evernight goddess's scripture. You are the Lord of Crimson, the Mother of Concealment, Empress of Calamity and Fear, Lord of Slumber and Silence. We pray for your protection. In this hour forgotten by starlight. May your veil cover the clamor of the world. May your breath calm restless souls. Let the lost see the lamp of return. Let the frantic sink into dreamless sleep. Please grant us the courage to pass through the darkness. But do not let us glimpse your true countenance. Please soothe our fears with silence. But do not let us forget reverence. For you know all lost secrets. For you hold all unspoken truths. The long sound echoed throughout the grand cathedral. Kornli forcefully pressed Captain Dun's head into the wooden barrel filled with holy water. He watched as wisps of black energy, accompanied by the sounds of prayer, seeped from Captain Dun's head, and he made no other movements. This might be the only time in his life he'd ever held the captain's head down. Change the water. Leonard gritted his teeth, moving another barrel of clean holy water over. Captain Dun was lifted by two strong arms, transferred from one wooden barrel to another. When I saw the note you secretly handed me, I was startled. Al-Hassan walked over and grabbed Kornli's right hand, pulling him out. To have a team member with such an exceptionally meticulous mind is indeed a blessing for the Tingen City Nighthawks team. I agree. From behind the two, Captain Dun lifted his head from the holy water barrel, speaking like a ghost. Captain Dun, are you all right? Leonard walked over, shaking his still trembling forearm. Your fists are getting heavier. My apologies. Captain Dun, dripping wet, stood up from the bucket. He looked around at the choir of 32 divine servants, 4 priests, and 6 combatants still surrounding him, and couldn't help but let out a wry smile. You were very well prepared. What you saw wasn't everything. Al-Hassan walked over and patted Dun's shoulder. If the holy water and exorcism ritual couldn't completely dispel all the power of the Antigonus family's notes, our next step was to knock you out, hijack a steam locomotive, and head straight to the cathedral in Backlund. Leonard and Fry would serve as human shields during the transport. The former is already used to your attack methods, and the latter is quite resilient to hits. Let me guess, this idea must have come from Kornli. Captain Dun looked at Kornli, who was also soaking wet. A perfectly arranged personnel plan. You're welcome, Captain, the latter said, revealing a mouthful of white teeth. At least I did something that's never been done before. I believe no one in the team has managed to hold your head down and stuff you into a bucket until now. Leonard, if he had known this was the plan, he should have rushed forward first. Captain, we still need to test you, please forgive us, Leonard said in a low voice. I understand. Dun spread his hands, calmly accepting the tests from Leonard and Al-Hassan. Temporarily safe, but for safety, I insist you return to the cathedral within the next week for further examination, Al-Hassan said. This is one captain's insistence to another captain. All right. Captain Dun nodded. Everyone has been busy for most of the day today, it's time to rest. No, Captain, I've also prepared a small program, Kornli said with a smile. Follow me. Half an hour later, all the men, with long towels wrapped around their waists, were soaking in warm holy water. Several divine servants hurriedly added a mixture of holy water and cold Hoi River water to a large pool that could accommodate at least 20 people. A good suggestion. Al-Hassan immersed half of his body in the warm pool. This kind of thing should be promoted in all Nighthawks teams. Exactly, especially the subsequent drinks should also be included. Borgia pulled open a stack of beers placed nearby, extracted a bottle, flicked open the cap with his thumb, and gently blew on it with his mouth. The warm beer turned cold and refreshing under his breath. He handed the beer to Kornli beside him. The first bottle is yours. What you did tonight was brilliant. Even we, the senior members, couldn't have done better. The first toast, to our Mr. Kornli. Al-Hassan raised his glass. Luo Luota's voice came from the adjacent room. To you, Kornli. Someone bring me a cold beer. Thank you. Kornli chugged the cold beer. The hot water on his skin and the cold beer in his stomach created a unique refreshing sensation. He comfortably submerged most of his head underwater, only leaving his eyes exposed. Klein, I once said that as long as we solved the case of the Antigonus family's notes, I would promote you to a formal member of the team, Captain Dun said calmly, holding his pipe. Your divination role in this case was outstanding and played a crucial part. Actually, I didn't do anything, most of the credit goes to Kornli. Klein squinted at Kornli beside him. The latter had already handed the third bottle of beer to Borgia and, seeing Klein, casually handed the newly chilled beer to Klein. Poor Borgia was being used as a refrigerator by everyone, and for Beyonders, this low-alcohol beer only served as a beverage, completely unable to produce the effects of alcohol. Finally, I want to ask, Mr. Klein Moretti, are you willing to become a formal member of the Nighthawks team? Your weekly salary will reach 6 gold pounds, and you will need to adhere to stricter confidentiality rules and undergo more rigorous training. I am willing, Captain, Klein replied in a low voice. Do you think this is an appropriate setting to say that? Everyone looked at each other, each with only a gray towel wrapped around their body, and burst into laughter. Captain, this is indeed not an appropriate setting, Leonard exhaled. Oh. Captain Dunn nodded. Congratulations to the Nighthawks team on gaining another formal member, Al Hassan said. According to the rules, we will stay here for 3 days. Then, tomorrow night we will have a celebratory dinner at Old Will's restaurant, Dunn said, looking at Kornli. You go reserve a table. Okay, Captain. Kornli nodded. Gentlemen, the lady next to you has already left. She said that if needed, Mr. Al Hassan knows where to find her. Thank you. Al Hassan nodded. Luota must have gone to find maids in coffee shops again. Don't worry. You all go back and rest. Tonight, Luo Yao will be on duty at Channy's gate. I will sleep in the church tonight, this is a necessary arrangement. He stood up. Leonard silently raised 3 fingers on his right hand, lowering them one by one. Oh, there's one more thing. Dunn turned his head and silently looked at Leonard. I seem to have forgotten what I should say. I will help you, Captain. Leonard spread his hands. You need to rest today. I will handle the team matters and report to you. Captain Dunn nodded indifferently and walked out of the bathroom. You don't have to tell me, I'll keep an eye on him too. Al Hassan understood the unspoken words in Leonard's eyes. I believe he's just experiencing his usual forgetfulness. I hope so, Leonard murmured to himself. I hope so. Here. Kornli handed the third bottle of cold beer to Klein. This is the last bottle for tonight. The priest only bought 3 dozen beers and didn't consider how many of us there are. Klein nodded, took the beer, and drank it in large gulps. Refreshing. You haven't left yet. In the room downstairs of the Blackthorn security company that served as an autopsy room, Fry asked, surprised, as Kornli walked in. I heard this guy has been transported here, and I suddenly felt like seeing what he looks like, Kornli said. All right. Fry readily agreed. Fry placed the man on the cold dissecting table, cut open his only outer garment with a scalpel, turned on the tap above the table, rinsed the grease paint off his face with cold water, then took a clean cloth from nearby and dried it. He was an ordinary-looking man, around 30 years old, with no remarkable features on his face. Poor child, at 30, he became a Sequence 7 magician, and lost his life because he appeared in a place he shouldn't have. May you not encounter me in your next life. Fry took a piece of paper and a pencil from nearby and quickly sketched the man's face. Soon, a lifelike portrait appeared on the cardboard in his hand. That's a really good drawing, Kornli praised. If this wasn't Beander work, you could definitely be a painter. That's one of my hobbies, Fry nodded. What I like most is the feeling of the sunset over a field of flowers, but ever since I became a corpse collector, what I've drawn most are wraiths in the moonlight grass. This potion also affects one's hobbies. Kornli chuckled. All right, you help me guard here for a few minutes. I need to put this thing in the captain's office. Fry pointed to the door. It takes a lot of effort to open the door every time, so it's much better if someone is inside. Leonard is in charge of the captain's duties today, Kornli explained to Fry, who nodded. Kornli approached the table. Since the potion in his body was not of the Seer series, it should not trigger any reaction from the other party. Thump. The corpse's legs involuntarily swayed. Speak quickly if you have something to say. I'm in a hurry. Kornli put down the pencil he was playing with. Honich's, right. Any other last words? The corpse's hands seemed to come alive, propping itself up on both ends of the dissecting table, lifting its upper body. Its eyes scanned the room once before fixing on Kornli. You will die, you will definitely die, will die. A series of hoarse low-in words came from his throat, and his body crashed down like a heavy stone onto the upper half of the morgue slab, leaving a brain-shaped indentation on the grayish-white slab. From his right wrist, an imprint the thickness of 2 pencils detached, forming a light blue orb that floated in midair. Kornli, quick as a flash, grabbed an empty bottle nearby, covered the orb, and quickly sealed the lid. Hey, Kornli, what are you doing? Fry walked in and saw the orb still floating in the empty bottle in Kornli's hand, his eyes widening in surprise. This fell off this guy's wrist, and just now this guy actually got up and said some nonsense. Kornli handed him the bottle. He. Fry smiled helplessly. He took a bottle of light blue potion from a nearby shelf and poured it directly onto the corpse's face. A black aura appeared on the man's corpse face. Fry leaned closer and sniffed carefully. Interesting. It's similar to the methods used to control corpses on some of the southern islands, but he only learned some basic techniques. Passing on a message was the limit of what he could do. Fry picked up a bottle of essential oil from a nearby shelf, opened it, and placed it next to the corpse. This should do it. This bottle of essential oil, a mixture of tranquil grass and several other herbs, can confuse the spirits between the living and the dead. Is your job that simple? Kornli watched silently as Fry washed his hands and led him out of the room. We already know this guy was killed by you, is there anything else needed? Fry looked at him. Examining the residue in his stomach isn't a necessary process, and the captain has already taken the Beander characteristic from his body. What else do I need to do? Kornli thought about it, and indeed, that was the case. After dawn, the police station will send people to take this corpse away for cremation. Fry knocked on Kornli's shoulder with his fist. Leonard just said you did a lot of work today. Even if you want to save all of Tingen City, it would still take at least 2 days to finish. Hee. Fry's humor made Kornli nod. Well then, good night, colleague. What a diligent guy. Fry watched Kornli's departing back and shook his head helplessly. The next morning, Kornli arrived at the office at his usual time. In the captain's room, Al Hassan and Captain Dunn sat facing each other. Captain Dunn held a pipe, and Al Hassan smoked a rolled cigarette, both silent. Did I come at a bad time? Kornli scratched his head. I can come back later. No need to worry about your captain, Al Hassan smiled, taking Kornli's expense report. Without even looking at it, he signed it, mimicking Captain Dunn's handwriting. I thought about it and insisted he go back to the cathedral for a checkup. He hasn't been back in 3 years. He will take the steam locomotive to Backlund at 3:40 p.m. today. During this time, I will temporarily assume the duties of the Tingen City Squad captain. He'll be back in 3 days at most, which means if you want to claim anything, you just need to fill out a suitable reason within 3 days. Al Hassan winked at Kornli with his left eye. Among all the Nighthawks squads, Tingen City's expenses have always been the lowest. You occasionally need to indulge a bit. I understand, Captain. So, is today's celebration moved to noon? Dunn nodded. Ms. Lolota doesn't really like crowds. The task of guarding Channy's gate can be left to us. Captain Dunn nodded again. Then I'll trouble you all. At 12 noon, everyone, including Old Neil, gathered at Old Will's family restaurant. Bottle after bottle of aged Southwell red wine and Sunia blood wine were brought out. Today's feast included medium rare steaks, large Dixie meat pies, golden fried fish fillets, strips of garlic bread, and the owner's proud stewed lamb, all served up. Today is a day worth celebrating, the squad has gained another combatant. Captain Dunn raised his glass. Cheers. Hey, you've become a combatant too, Roseanne said softly, clinking glasses with Klein. Now I'll have to stay up late every night again. I heard the captain say he wants to transfer at least 2 people from the police force to become our administrative staff. Kornli leaned in. Don't worry, you just need to hold out until the captain returns. Really? Roseanne was overjoyed, pulling Klein to chatter about food and gossip. Kornli pulled out a newly bought pouch of tobacco from the Fasak Empire from his in my arms and handed it to Captain Dunn. Thank you, I was just running low on my stash. Captain Dunn gladly accepted the gift. Fine food and wine flowed like water. Kornli observed Captain Dunn's every move from time to time. His demeanor was very natural, completely devoid of the awkwardness one might expect after reading Antigonus's notes. It was nearly 2:30 in the afternoon when everyone noisily finished the lavish lunch. Brett directly drove the carriage and waited at the entrance for Captain Dunn, ready to take him straight to the steam train station. Since it was only a simple inspection and debriefing, Captain Dunn did not carry too many things, only a black leather case with him. Of course, it did not contain 2049, or the Antigonus family notes. 14 sol and 7 pounds. Well, you gluttonous fellows. After seeing Captain Dunn off, the responsibility for paying the bill fell solely on Leonard. He took the long bill and frowned as he looked at the final price. The price here also includes tonight's slightly more lavish dinner, as well as Mr. Al-Hassan and his 2 companions' lunch and dinner, Kornli whispered into Leonard's ear. There's still a lavish dinner tonight. You truly are a competent clerical worker. Leonard unhesitatingly pulled out the wallet Captain Dunn had left and paid the bill. Everyone's faces were filled with smiles. After lunch, Kornli found Klein. Hey, Klein, I need you to do me a favor. Kornli pulled out the diamond-shaped amulet he had bought from the black market and handed it over. What use can this thing be? Klein took the amulet and examined it carefully. My giant dragon language isn't proficient, but I can try dream divination. He took out his amethyst for divination, suspended it above the charm, took a deep breath, and silently chanted. The origin of this amulet. The origin of this amulet. The origin of this amulet. ... After 7 consecutive attempts, he opened his eyes with regret and pushed the amulet back to Kornli. The dream divination failed, Klein said regretfully. I have no clues at all. We should go find old Neil. His language and ritual abilities are much stronger than ours. The 2 walked side by side to the archives where old Neil was. Kornli handed him the amulet. Old Neil carefully put on his glasses, picked up a magnifying glass, and meticulously distinguished the patterns and characters on it. Where did you find this thing? Old Neil looked at Kornli in surprise. A black market, but it's very unsafe. I suggest you don't go there, Kornli said. He didn't want the current Klein and Mrs. Diana of the Jacob family to get involved so early. In their eyes, Klein was a very delicious young fresh meat. I can only identify this character. It has a double meaning in the giant dragon language. The first meaning represents secret, or treasure, old Neil said, pouring each of them a cup of coffee. In the giant dragon language, these 2 words are often one meaning, Klein explained. Although those giant dragons created unparalleled architecture, their language ability often makes people feel perplexed. What's the other meaning? Kornli asked. Lost, disappeared, old Neil took a sip of coffee. That should be the meaning. As for the other character, well, you 2 wait for me here for a few minutes. I should have seen this character, or a variation of it, somewhere. Old Neil walked out of the room and came back a few minutes later with a tattered book. Look, it should be this character. Old Neil held the book and turned to the last page. On it was a simple drawing of a tombstone. All the characters on the inscription were in giant dragon language. The 3rd character in the 2nd line in the middle of the giant dragon language was carved with a very similar character. The owner of the tombstone was a famous traveler named Antonios Watts from the 2nd epoch. He once came to a city he had never heard of in his dreams, where various colored giant dragons lived in the sky. They either circled on pillars or played with each other using fireballs and ice balls. He lived there for several months and became friends with a young giant dragon named Waltz, living a happy life. When he left, something strange happened. His body detached from his clothes, and an inhuman roar came from his throat. He flapped 2 dragon wings and slowly rose from the ground, his heart filled with longing for life and dreams. He turned into a giant dragon just like Waltz. He was very happy. But he knew he could never return to the human world. A very good novel, Kornli clapped and praised. Even now, it's still a good read. This isn't a novel, it's a factual account. Old Neil gave him a sideways glance. This book was written by Antonios himself, and the tombstone was also built by him, but by that time, he had already forgotten human language and could only write the inscription in giant dragon language. Klein and Kornli exchanged glances, both feeling incredible. So, the two giant dragons lived happily ever after like a princess and prince in a fairy tale. Kornli laughed. Very likely. Old Neil sighed. From the tombstone, in context, this word should be translated as, another world. Strange, this is the first time I've seen giant dragon language that can be translated so accurately. Old Neil stroked the charm. It's truly unbelievable. Let me look at the trajectory on it. Old Neil picked up the magnifying glass again and carefully traced the strokes on the charm. If I'm not mistaken, it should be like this. Old Neil watched as his Southwell coffee can was taken by Kornli for the second time, and he made himself another cup of coffee. You read the first character, and something will happen, and then you read the second character. It's that simple. Kornli asked. The usage of many things is that simple, Old Neil said. When you pick up an apple, you wouldn't think of cutting it into small pieces first, throwing it into rum to macerate for a few days, then taking it out, slicing it, and putting it in gin to enhance the flavor of a cocktail. Most people would choose to eat it directly. Such a concise explanation. He seemed to understand, yet also not. If what you say is true, this item should be like 2049, sealed artifact. No, no, no. Although some things in this world are terrifying, not all, Beander items, are, sealed artifacts. As for side effects, I believe you need to try it. Some things are worth trying. Old Neil looked at Klein. Although there was a problem with divining the origin of this item, you can try divining whether using this item will cause problems. This can also increase your safety. Okay. Kornli handed the charm to Klein for the second time. Please help me divine what will happen if I use this charm. Good. Klein took the talisman without hesitation, thought for a few seconds, and still took off the citrine from his left wrist, muttering to himself. Although using the coin divination method could reveal the answer faster, since Kornli, the person he trusted most besides the captain, was the one who requested it, Klein still chose the crystal divination method. This method could assess the level of danger better than simply using the coin divination method. Using this Beander item will have side effects. The citrine suspended above the talisman began to slowly rotate clockwise, not too quickly. Clockwise meant affirmation, and the slow speed indicated that the side effects were acceptable. Give it a try. Old Neil put the talisman into Kornli's hand. The first experiment should be given to its owner. All right, how do you pronounce these two words? Kornli looked at Old Neil. Old Neil lightly pressed his Adam's apple with the index finger of his left hand, producing a guttural sound similar to a pig about to squeal but being hit back by its keeper. Klein and Kornli. The second one is a bit simpler, requiring you to practice exhaling through a single nostril. This is one of the giant dragon language techniques. Old Neil made another inconceivable sound. Kornli put the talisman back around his neck and first made the initial sound, hey. No, no, that's too far off, Old Neil said disapprovingly, keep trying. Cough. Incorrect, continue. Old Neil took a dissatisfied sip of coffee. 5 minutes later, Kornli, who was already out of breath from his own pronunciation, looked at Klein beside him, who was laughing so hard he had fallen onto the sofa, and glared at Old Neil angrily. Isn't there a simpler way? Perhaps. Old Neil walked over, quickly grabbed Kornli's right hand, bit down hard on his finger, and then smeared the bloodied finger on the talisman. Ah! Kornli was caught off guard by the sudden attack and looked at Old Neil indignantly. Is this method effective? I don't know, but there's no harm in it. Old Neil spread his hands, a man bleeding a little. The words, is nothing, hadn't even left his throat when his eyes suddenly widened. Kornli's blood on the talisman rapidly disappeared under the gaze of Old Neil and Klein. Kornli's eyes rolled back, his whole body trembling incessantly. The talisman snapped free from its string with a thud, and burrowed into Kornli's body. Bang! Kornli's body vanished into thin air before Klein and Old Neil. No, no, Klein clutched his head. Kornli exploded. No, not an explosion. Old Neil looked at Klein with a wry smile. I can feel it, he's still near us. Open your spirit vision and feel Kornli's aura with your heart. He formed a mysterious symbol with his left hand, and the Eye of Mystery Prior appeared behind him. Those merciless eyes transcended the boundaries of space and time, revealing everything in the room. Eyes, such large eyes. Klein saw Old Neil's Eye of Mystery Prior the moment he activated his spirit vision, suffering another huge blow to his psyche. That's just a manifestation of my power. Old Neil looked around. Damn it, where did Kornli go? Where is he? As the talisman flowed into Kornli's body, a mysterious power simultaneously surged into his mind. This was not a talisman, but a miraculous Beyonder item. Dream scales. His figure became hazy. Everything before him lost its color, becoming only black and white. White floated around, and black lines slowly extended outwards from beneath his feet. The two white dots clearly represented Klein and Old Neil. The light dot on Klein had a faint gray aura, while the one representing Old Neil was intermingled with gray and white, indicating that his mystery prior potion contained many unknown secrets. He followed the black line forward. Before him should have been a thick wall, but the black line subtly told him that wherever the black line could pass, he could pass through. He passed through. His body felt a slight squeeze from the solid bricks of the wall, yet he felt that this was a perfectly natural thing. This is the path of imagination, a voice subtly told him. As long as he wanted to pass, he could pass. A video appeared before his eyes. Two white giant dragons lay on the ground, one large and one small. From their gazes, he could feel the deep affection between them. This is for you. The large dragon used its front claw to pull a blood-stained scale from its chest and placed it on the ground, drawing two lines on it with its right front claw before handing it to the small dragon. Take it, you can go anywhere. The video abruptly ended. His head felt a wave of dizziness, and the light dots and black lines before him began to slowly dissipate. He must exit this state. The moment he thought of this, a huge danger signal surged from his heart. He looked left and right, only then noticing a terrifying fact. He was still inside the wall. Kornli quickly ran 2 steps forward, returning to Old Neil's archive room. He uttered a faint sound in giant dragon language. Appear. Bang. Kornli's body appeared from inside the room. He squatted on the ground, his head splitting with pain. Old Neil quickly handed him a bottle of light blue potion to drink, and Klein helped him onto the sofa, after which he felt a bit better. What happened? Klein asked. Kornli pulled open his clothes. In front of his heart, a faint white dragon scale appeared. The massive dragon scale not only protected his heart but also provided him with an extraordinary ability. Under Kornli's will, the dragon scale's appearance slowly vanished, but in the eyes of Klein and Old Neil, this was definitely a terrifying thing. Don't worry, this thing won't harm me. Kornli smiled. This thing is called Dream Scales. After using it, you can pass through many physical obstacles in the real world, such as thick prison walls or bank. Kornli spread his hands awkwardly, by using the gaps between the spirit world and reality. If your body is inside a wall or physical obstacle when you come out, you will die instantly. Sounds good. Klein said eagerly, are there any side effects? It loses a certain amount of blood from the body every minute, Kornli said. I haven't figured out the general pattern yet, so I can only use it for short periods. This item was meant for young giant dragons. For giant dragons, that amount of blood seemed like no loss, but for humans, that amount of blood could be fatal. Klein gasped. Don't worry, I'll control the time I use this item, Kornli said. Besides, dragon scales are very rare. Are they really dragon scales? Klein extended his right hand and poked Kornli's heart. It felt soft. Cough, cough. Old Neil coughed twice, a hint of teasing appearing on his face. Although I'm a rather trendy old man, don't you think your actions just now were a bit too? Kornli and Klein blushed. Kornli quickly buttoned his shirt, while Klein picked up his coffee and drank it in large gulps, trying to hide his actions. By the way, old Neil, I still need the poison from last time, both kinds. Kornli's face returned to normal. And do you have any faster acting poisons? The previous 2 times, I estimated the time. The paralyzing poison takes at least 3 seconds to take effect. If the opponent's physique is good enough, they can hold out for 5 seconds. These 5 seconds are enough to change the course of a battle. Your demands are very high. Old Neil sat at his desk, his left hand propping up his chin, pondering the necessary formula. Kornli spread his hands. The Marauder's ability was only supplementary for combat. Once in a fight, he was not one of those Beyonders who excelled at combat. In a head-on confrontation, he was generally at a disadvantage against those of the same sequence. He needed to further improve his combat abilities. The hand crossbow was a key factor, as it could provide him with a perfect first strike opportunity and also conceal his figure. I'll buy you double the coffee beans as compensation. Kornli raised his right hand and solemnly swore. For the sake of the coffee beans. Old Neil beamed. I'll only make this formula for you once, because there really aren't any extra materials left. It's probably because the materials you usually embezzle are only enough for one portion. Klein and Kornli had the same thought flash through their minds simultaneously. They exchanged glances and raised their coffee cups at the same time. You 2 lads, follow me. Old Neil coughed twice and led them through the room guarding the Chinese gate, arriving at the alchemy lab located underground. This is the formula, Old Neil said. 15 milliliters of black abyss devil fish blood, 30 milliliters of corpse putrefaction fluid, 10 milliliters of raven blood, and the most important 5 milliliters of devil's blood. Old Neil pushed the bottle to Kornli. Devil's blood can rapidly destroy the blood and organs within a normal human body, but this potion loses most of its effect on a devil. In this version of the poison, I've changed the black widow spider's venom to its venom gland, making the toxicity even more potent, Old Neil said solemnly. I don't have an antidote. Don't worry, Kornli said. After returning, Kornli, as usual, retrieved 70 bullets from the armory and fully re-equipped himself. Klein watched in surprise. Do you usually carry so many bullets? Kornli nodded. You never know when you might need to save the world, so the best way is to carry all your weapons with you. Klein. In the evening, after a dinner several times more sumptuous than the previous 10-pence bento, Klein and Kornli took a public carriage to the Divination Club. Good evening, Mr. Klein, Mr. Kornli. Angelica watched as the 2 simultaneously placed their canes together, walked to the corner where they sat last time in the meeting room, and picked up today's newspaper to read together. A shy smile appeared on her face. Such high synchronization could not be achieved without a certain level of tacit agreement. If no one had mentioned it, she would have certainly thought they were a well-matched couple. Southwell coffee, and your black tea, Mr. Klein. Miss Angelica skillfully served their drinks. Mr. Gracies is looking for you. Gracies. Ah, he's the one whose face he had read. Ah, Mr. Klein, good evening, you truly are a wonderful doctor. Gracies walked over and cordially shook Klein's right hand. Do you have a guest? I apologize, I was overly excited just now. It's all right, please sit. Klein extended his hand, inviting Gracies to sit down. He subtly tapped his glabella, noticing that Gracies's complexion had improved significantly, and the black mist shrouding his entire astral body had diminished considerably. Please forgive me for saying before that I didn't believe your words, Gracies said excitedly. Your diagnosis was truly amazing. I went to the hospital, and the doctor also confirmed your judgment, it was indeed severe pneumonia. Then you are now. Klein's eyes widened. In his impression, pneumonia wasn't something that could be cured in a day or two. A friend introduced me to a doctor, yes, that's the pronunciation, Gracies said. He opened a pharmacy in East Borough. After hearing about my condition, he only used 1 dose of herbal medicine to restore my health. This was simply too miraculous. Do you still remember the name of that shop? Klein asked. Even a seer cannot fully predict everyone's health, we still need the help of a doctor. Let me think. Rhosid pressed his left hand to his forehead. There's a small shop at 18 Vlad Street in East Borough called Rosen's Folk Herb Shop. The owner's name is Rosen Duckweed. Oh, it's the shop opened by that apothecary. Kornli, standing nearby, silently noted down the address. Perhaps he could obtain some suitable potions from him to enhance his recovery. Today's Southwell coffee tasted good. The water temperature was just right, bringing out the subtle citrus notes in the coffee perfectly. Mr. Klein, may I ask you for a divination? I will pay the price you ask. Rhosid asked eagerly. This was an opportunity to digest the potion that came knocking on his door. My divination price is still 8 pence, Klein said with a smile. Then, the citrine room. Good. Rhosid stood up, gave a slight apologetic nod to Kornli, and walked past him towards the citrine room. Sigh, Kornli sighed. He flipped his right wrist, placing the money bag that originally belonged to Rhosid on the table, covering it with the newspaper Klein had read. Stealing an ordinary person's money bag only increased the digestion speed of his marauder potion by an imperceptible sliver. At this rate, he would at least need to become a famous thief, reviled by everyone in Tingen City, before his potion could be fully digested. What a perplexing way to digest. If he weren't a Nighthawks, this method of using theft to digest the potion would still be acceptable, but by chance, he stood on the side of justice. It's probably time to return to his old profession. However, before that, he still had something else to do. Oh, I was so careless. Thank you for picking up my money bag for me. Rhosid walked out of the citrine room, initially looking anxious. After learning that Kornli had helped him pick up his money bag, he wanted to take out some money as a token of gratitude, but Kornli declined. Did he really drop his money bag? Klein asked softly with a doubtful expression after Mr. Rhosid walked away. You forgot that the day before yesterday we were over there. Kornli gestured his head towards the port area, then took out a brown money bag from his pregnant and placed it in his palm. The money inside hasn't been spent yet, and besides, I'm still an apprentice detective at the Tingen City Police Department. I would never knowingly break the law. Klein nodded, he still trusted Kornli's character. What did Mr. Rhosid want to divine? Kornli asked. He learned of an opportunity to invest in a mine in Civilis County. He had divined it himself using an astrolabe, but because it was a self-divination, there were too many interfering factors. He didn't force an interpretation of the astrolabe, but chose to ask someone else to divine it again for double verification, Klein said, picking up the newspaper from earlier. The results are concerning. Divination isn't omnipotent, Kornli said, putting down the newspaper he was holding. Let's stop here for today. See you tomorrow. Good night, Kornli, Klein nodded. Kornli walked out of the divination club, hailed a carriage, and went straight to Rosen's Folk Herbal Shop, in the East Borough. The fat shopkeeper at the door was just about to pull down the door curtain when he saw Kornli approaching, and he quickly stopped what he was doing. Good evening, sir. You look very well today. What would you like? Our shop has a very complete range of potions. If you want some medicines to increase pleasure at night, we have those too. They even contain absolutely pure mummy powder, the shopkeeper Duckweed sidled over conspiratorially and whispered into Kornli's ear. He had definitely heard that sneaky voice somewhere before. It was him, the guy who wanted to sell his enlargement potion at the market outside Diana's black market. Oh, let me go in and take a look. Kornli walked into the shop and carefully looked around. Most of what was displayed inside were herbs and essential oils. It seemed that if one needed a potion, it would have to be custom-made. What do you need? The fat shopkeeper Duckweed watched Kornli pick up and smell every item, not choosing anything for a long time, his attitude showing a slight impatience. I need some potions that can quickly replenish the human body's blood. Kornli turned his head and said, My dear doctor, sir. His identity had been exposed by the other party in one sentence. The other party was also a Beander. He was only a Sequence 8 doctor, and his offensive capabilities were not strong. His pistol was left in the counter and he did not have it on him. If the other party was a fanatic, his life might be in danger. Please do not make any threatening moves. Kornli turned and changed the sign at the door from open to closed, and casually greeted the green-feathered parrot on the shelf. Good evening. Good evening, please don't kill me, I'm just a parrot, my meat isn't tasty at all. The parrot trembled and raised its wings in a gesture of surrender. Whether it's stewed or fried, that guy across the street tastes very good. Shut up, you idiot. Duckweed glared at his parrot. Why did I ever choose you? If you can let me go, I will leave Tingen City before tomorrow and live somewhere else. Duckweed turned and raised his hands to Kornli. I am not one of those fanatics from the church. On the contrary, I can offer you some protection. Kornli took out his detective badge and placed it on the table for Duckweed to see. The reason I exposed your identity is because I need some truly effective medicines, or potions, whatever you want to call them. Kornli took the shelf with the parrot on it and gently stroked the parrot's long feathers with his hand. Kornli's action of revealing his identity slightly reduced the fear in Duckweed's heart. Then, Mr. Kornli, allow me to call you that for now. Duckweed pondered for a moment. You should know that blood is produced every day and some is consumed every day. But if you want to produce it quickly, it requires stimulating certain things within the body, and stimulating these things will have certain side effects. I know, Kornli nodded, that's why I would only use the potion you provide as a last resort. Since you say so, it seems you need this potion for combat. I understand. Duckweed took a red box from a nearby shelf, opened the lid, and took out 2 brown herbs and a bottle of bright red liquid from inside. A little bit of this, and this, let me think, and this. Duckweed's hands continuously mixed several herbs and essential oils together, and finally carefully poured a drop of the bright red liquid he had just taken out. The mixture in the bottle first turned light yellow, then red, and finally dark gray. Duckweed shook it twice in dissatisfaction, and the solution in the bottle separated into 2 layers. The upper layer light yellow, the lower layer bright red, the same color as fresh blood. This is what you want. Duckweed carefully poured the mixture from the bottle into 4 small vials. Call it whatever you like, but you can only drink 1 bottle of this at a time, or rather, per day. It will strongly stimulate your coccyx, which in our theory is the root source of human blood production, Duckweed said. You will gain a large amount of fresh blood within 2 minutes, and it will forcefully put you into an excited or irritable state, depending on your physical condition, lasting 5 minutes. I suggest you take a cold bath immediately after consumption to relieve the pressure on your body. Duckweed handed the 4 small vials to Kornli. 12 gold pounds, thank you. Bastard, why don't you just rob me? Kornli glared at Duckweed, can you give me a reasonable discount? What do you consider a reasonable discount? Duckweed retorted. 10% off, how about that? Boss, he's better at bargaining than you. The parrot flapped its wings nearby, laughing loudly, caw-caw. Shut up, you idiot. Duckweed's face darkened. Considering Duckweed's hard work in compounding the medicine and the cost, Kornli finally bought the 4 small bottles of blood enhancement potion for 8 gold pounds, then bid farewell to Duckweed and left. With the protection of the blood enhancement potion and the dream scales, his chances of survival were greatly increased. Well then, it was time to do what he needed to do. The next morning, Kornli placed 2 fresh bags of coffee beans on old Neil's desk. This was his compensation for old Neil making him potions. Today, Al Hassan was in charge of the team. When he saw Kornli enter, he flicked his right hand, and a cigarette flew into Kornli's hand. Is there any news from our dear Captain Dunn? Kornli leaned on Al Hassan's cigarette to light his own, took a deep puff, and blew an ill-formed smoke ring. He has already arrived at the Holy Hall, but according to the telegram from the Holy Hall, he will need at least 1 more day to complete all the inspections. That means the earliest he can return is on tomorrow afternoon's steam train, Al Hassan said. Captain won't be in trouble, will he? Kornli asked worriedly. That's the Holy Hall of the Evernight Goddess Church, what could possibly happen? Al-Hassan chuckled. The Holy Hall has always attached great importance to every member of a Beander team. Could you briefly tell me what the Holy Hall is like? Kornli seized the opportunity to pump for information. The Holy Hall, huh? Al-Hassan glanced at Kornli. You'll know when you go there. With your abilities, it's only a matter of time. HMPH, this guy won't tell me anything real. I eagerly hope nothing happens recently, Al-Hassan said, sitting in the captain's room, enjoying blowing smoke rings. Life here is like a vacation for me. Is Backlund busy every day? That's the city of 10,000 capitals. The Aurora Order, Demonist Sect, Spirit Sages, and those unknown underground churches all want to achieve their own goals there. Al-Hassan leaned back in his chair. Oh, right, you're not familiar with the names of many sects. When your dear captain returns, you can find some information about those guys in the archives. Especially the Aurora Order. They worship the true creator, but they are doing everything they can to cause destruction in this world. Actually, I know quite a lot. After bidding farewell to Al-Hassan, Kornli returned to the team's office. Klein had also moved his workspace here and was playing cards with Shigia, the author, who had just returned from patrolling the cemetery, and Leonard. 3 2s. Joker bomb. Klein unhesitatingly threw out his pair of jokers. 3 6s with a 3. 3 7s with a 3. Leonard looked at Klein, the landlord opposite him. Last card. A diamond 4 floated lightly onto the table, and the 3 pennies in front of Klein were mercilessly swept into Leonard's chip pile. Damn it, this is the 5th hand today. Klein leaned back in his chair helplessly. Always just 1 card short. Ha. Leonard, who was having a good run today, smiled as he shuffled the cards. Our acting captain Leonard, have you found any clues about that small ball? Kornli sat opposite Klein and casually took over Klein's hand. No. Leonard shook his head. Klein just used divination to examine the mark in that bottle, but it had no effect. That means either that mark is nothing, or the person who possesses it is immune to divination. Theoretically, I believe the latter, Leonard said after drawing his cards and looking at them. Call 2 points. 3 points. Kornli unhesitatingly became the landlord. 3 2s with a 3, Joker bomb, a straight from 3 to 10. 2 springs, 6 pennies each. Kornli smiled, mercilessly taking 12 pennies from the chips in front of Shigia and Leonard with his right hand, and casually slipping them to Klein. Damn it, what happened? Leonard and Shigia looked at each other. You two continue. Kornli grinned, picked up an unfinished document from nearby, and pretended nothing had happened, watching Klein and the other two continue playing cards. Oh, right, I have nothing to do recently. You can arrange for me to start guarding Channy's gate, Kornli looked up and said to Leonard. That's the duty of a formal member, but according to normal procedure, you and Klein are not yet formal members, Leonard looked up. Although you two have already experienced many things that formal members should, as formal members, you still need to complete a mission independently. Captain never mentioned this. He must have forgotten. Shigia closed the cards in her hand. You haven't known Captain for the first day. That's absolutely true. However, after all this, it's very likely Captain will arrange a relatively simple mission for the two of you, since you've already completed the Blackthorn Security Company mission, Leonard said. A pair of 7s. Joker bomb. Consecutive pairs, a plane, a 3. Klein once again took 3 pennies from Leonard's hand. Lady Luck isn't on my side today. Leonard threw down his cards. Let's call it a day. In the evening, Klein left an hour early for a family gathering. Kornli returned to the divination club, this time alone. Good evening, Mr. Kornli, still coffee tonight. Angelica welcomed Kornli with a gentle smile. Yes, but you can wait a moment, Kornli said. I'd like Mr. Haynes Vincent to do a divination for me. I wonder if he has time. I apologize, Mr. Haynes Vincent has a class tonight and needs to leave early. He specifically instructed me not to schedule any divinations today. Then, what is tonight's class? Kornli asked. Perhaps I can listen in. The content might help me. Angelica gently pointed to the blackboard nearby, where it was clearly written in elegant script, 7:30 p.m., Advanced Divination Course, Magic Mirror Divination, Instructor, Haynes Vincent, Location, First floor small living room. Okay, I can try that, thank you. Kornli walked to his usual seat. Miss Angelica served the coffee and softly asked, Mr. Klein didn't come today? No, he has a family gathering today. The latter covered her mouth in surprise. I thought you two were. No, you're thinking too much. We're just good friends. Kornli took a deep breath. Just good friends. Angelica left with the tray, a look of disbelief on her face. In Kornli's gaze, her eyes occasionally darted towards him sitting by the coffee, seemingly with a sense of incredulity. Are people in this era so open-minded? Perhaps next time, Klein and I should come here one after the other. Time quickly reached 7:30. Kornli carried a new coffee to the small living room. Haynes Vincent sat at the head of the small living room, nodding and smiling at the dozen or so guests who had arrived. It's about time. Let's begin. None of you are new to mysticism. You should be aware of mirror divination, a completely new method of divination. In fact, I once gave a brief explanation of the mirror divination course to several apprentices who had already begun their study of divination. Haynes Vincent spoke eloquently from the sofa. Next, we need to provide a detailed explanation of the specific steps and interpretation methods. Haynes stood up, holding a mirror, and casually invited a female guest sitting in front of him to be the demonstrator. It's coming. Haynes took a deep breath, mumbling to himself. From the movement of his lips, Kornli accurately caught the key words. The Lord who created all things. Sinful body. The fallen self of the Holy Spirit. These things were enough to attract the attention of Leonard and Captain Al-Hassan. He persisted for a few minutes, then quietly stood up, put on his hat, and gently bowed to Haynes, who was conducting the ritual, indicating that he needed to leave early, and exited the small living room. Why are you out? Angelica looked at Kornli, who was pretending to be dizzy, and asked softly, not understanding. This course is too profound and not suitable for a beginner like me. Kornli chuckled, please give me a strong cup of black tea. I need to clear my head. All right, sir. Angelica turned to leave to get the black tea. Kornli gently flipped through 2 pages of the member registration record with his right hand, finding Haynes's address there. If he remembered correctly, Klein would notice the mirror divination matter tonight and report it to Leonard and the captain. Your black tea. Angelica handed the strong black tea to Kornli. Kornli took a few sips and sat down in his familiar spot. A little past 8 o'clock, Haynes and the students inside slowly walked out, still discussing a few things. Seeing Kornli still sitting on the sofa, he motioned to the person next to him that he would be excused for a moment and walked over to Kornli. May I sit? Of course, please. Kornli feigned flattery and gestured for Haynes to sit on the sofa opposite him. Excuse me, but I saw you leave halfway through just now. Was there a problem? Haynes asked. No, I'm just a beginner. All those specialized terms inside made me dizzy. I think it's better to first understand other divination techniques before learning mirror divination. Kornli spread his hands. This course is too profound for me. Haynes smiled, asked a few simple questions, then excused himself, claiming others were looking for him, and left. Kornli, however, left a step earlier, found a nearby shop for a beer and a medium rare steak dinner, then walked to Horse Street number 48. This was where Welch lived, and also where Haynes lived, while Cyrus lived at number 19 on this street. There were quite a few residents on Horse Street, but also many empty rooms. Kornli activated his spirit vision, and quickly confirmed that number 41, near number 48, had been empty for a long time, perfect for observation tonight. The condition was that sufficient information needed to be obtained from Haynes's home tonight to link them together. The previous owner of Horse Street number 41 must have had a relatively good income. The few chairs left in the room were made of fine cypress wood, and the curtains that hadn't been taken were also double-layered. Kornli pulled back the outer layer of the curtains, and the crimson moonlight outside shone into the room. This light was enough for Kornli to clearly see the movements at number 48, 200 meters away. He picked up a stool, sat against the wall, and watched the distant room at number 48 out of the corner of his eye. Around 9:30, a private carriage stopped at the entrance of Horse Street number 48. Haynes got out of the carriage, opened the door with a key, went inside, and locked the door. Kornli heard a faint, click, sound. Haynes is very cautious. For you to die peacefully tonight, I won't be able to break into your house for now. Kornli quietly waited for another 2 hours. It was almost midnight when a carriage slowly approached from a distance. Leonard and Captain Al Hassan, dressed in black coats, jumped off the carriage, rolled on the grass under the cover of the carriage, and then quickly hid behind the fence of the courtyard at Horse Street number 44. Truly, good moves, yes, good. Kornli secretly praised Leonard and Captain Al Hassan's skills, watching Captain Al Hassan place his right hand between his eyebrows, his eyes fixed on the 2-story building at number 48 not far away. His eyes slowly closed, and a faint spiritual fluctuation emanated from him, clearly indicating that he had used dream infiltration on Haynes in the distance. Bang! A spray of yellow, green, and red liquid splattered on the second-floor bedroom window. Al Hassan opened his eyes and exchanged glances with Leonard. Damn it, I just saw a hanging giant in my dream, and then his head shattered. Al Hassan took a deep breath. This is truly cursed. What does that thing mean? Is he a follower of the true creator? Leonard asked. It could be someone from the Aurora Order. They wholeheartedly believe in the true creator and do their utmost to cause all possible destruction in the world. You're here. Kornli walked over from the side. What happened? Klein rushed to the station tonight, reporting that the guy next door, Haynes Vincent, used prayer words not belonging to the 7 major gods when teaching mirror divination to his friends. Leonard suddenly realized, how are you here? Klein and I are in the same divination club. I also listened in tonight when Haynes was teaching. His prayer words included, the Lord who created all things and the fallen self within the Holy Spirit. Old Neil's documents for me and Klein mentioned these things. I believe he should be a member of the Aurora Order. You two always run into these things. Al Hassan stood up. I can now confirm he is an Aurora Order member, but I need to confirm if he has other companions. Regarding that, I think I can provide a clue. Kornli pointed with his hand, number 19 Horse Street ahead, Cyrus Orippus. I once saw Haynes chat briefly with him when he came back. Both of them looked very suspicious. If it was just a brief chat, it's not enough reason for us to investigate. Al Hassan shook his head and said. He has a silver chain with a cross on his wrist. Kornli said. Al Hassan nodded. That reason is enough. You wait here. Leonard and I will go inquire and make the arrest. Al Hassan shook his head. Today is the last day of my shift for done, and you still make this poor old man work overtime in another place. This is truly. As he shook his head, he and Leonard walked one after another down Horse Street. The two houses were nearly 150 meters apart. In the crimson moonlight, the door of Horse Street number 19 suddenly burst open. A man in a light gray suit pushed open the door and fled north. Leonard swiftly darted past Al Hassan, charging forward. The man swung his left hand back, and a huge, incomplete hand, missing its pinky finger, appeared in the sky and slammed straight down towards Leonard's head. Damn it, Leonard, dodge. Al Hassan blurted out. Leonard swiftly dove onto the grass to his left. Mid-motion, he transferred his cane to his left hand and pressed it firmly into the soft grass, using the leverage to spin 360 degrees again. He landed safely on the grass, just grazing the wound on the giant hand's pinky finger. The hand hit the ground with a thump, and, in Kornli and Al Hassan's eyes, turned into a puff of smoke, dissipating into the air. Bastard, it was an illusion. Al exhaled, looking at the disappeared figure. At least we caught one of them. It's a dead person. Kornli pulled out his pocket watch and glanced at the time. He's been dead for a few minutes. Is it still possible to commune with spirits? We can try, Al Hassan said. But in my dream, that fellow was killed by an illusion from the true creator. Divination or spirit communion carries a certain risk. I can go find Klein and bring him over to try divination, Leonard said, brushing grass off himself as he approached. Mr. Al-Hassan, please guard the house at number 19. I'll notify the police. There are 2 crime scenes here, and the police don't know what to search for. Their people can only seal off the scene and question neighbors at most. Then, I'll go to Horse Street number 48. I think we'll at least need Fry's help, or Shijia, and someone needs to guard the Chinese gate, Kornli said. Leonard, you can go to the church and wake up Borgia. From what I know, he doesn't sleep too deeply before 2 a.m. As for Ms. Lolota, forget it. Her morning temper is very. Al-Hassan made a gesture they both understood. We must respect a lady's habits. Leonard nodded, hailing a private carriage. He swiftly climbed onto the seat next to the coachman. To the nearest police station, quickly. Kornli walked to the house at Horse Street number 48 and pushed the door forcefully, only then remembering it was locked. This was no challenge for Kornli. He walked to the living room window, gently pushed up the glass with 2 fingers, quietly climbed in, then went to the nearby hallway and unlocked the door. The house was designed like most other Victorian-era homes. A long, narrow hallway upon entering, a room on the left that could serve as a study, and the living room on the right. The kitchen was hidden inside the living room, and there was another door outside the kitchen for throwing out trash, though it was usually locked. The second floor had 2 rooms, a bedroom and a formal study, neither of which was large. Kornli lightly touched his glabella to activate his spirit vision. He first opened the room on the left, which contained only some old furniture, and he didn't sense anything useful. In the living room, there were only 2 cups. One contained half a cup of the Southern Wales coffee he was familiar with, and the other was empty. Recent newspapers lay on the table nearby. Judging by the imprints on the sofa, no one had been there at least tonight. In the second-floor bedroom closet hung 3 suits, 2 white shirts, and some underwear. In the bedside drawer, Kornli found some loose change and unhesitatingly put it into his pocket. After all, a thief never leaves empty-handed is an ancestral motto. Only one room remained. As he approached the door, he could clearly feel that something in the room was attracting him. He opened the study door. The room wasn't large, about the same size as Klein's room, which he had visited before. Directly opposite the door was a 2-meter-long desk. Haynes sat on the stool, leaning forward on the desk with both hands, his right hand still holding a fountain pen with an ink-absorbing nib. He was writing a letter to someone. Kornli looked around but didn't find Haynes's spirit. He walked to the desk, leaned his body against the back of the chair, and looked at the half-written letter in front of him. Dear Mr. Z. As per your instructions, I have successfully developed a believer. She has some understanding of traditional divination, and is willing to learn those mystical knowledge under my guidance. I will follow your instructions and gradually bring her into the embrace of our Lord. I believe she will be able to contribute to your cause in the future. The Antigonus family notebook, in the eyes of Cyrus and myself, showed no abnormalities. The knowledge within is not worth mentioning, there is no hidden knowledge as rumored. According to Cyrus, this notebook seems to have its own intentions. That hidden knowledge only appears when it encounters someone from the Antigonus family. I know the secret order has been searching for any artifacts related to the Antigonus family. They possess the seer pathway and are very good at tracking, but we are willing to pay a certain price to uncover all the secrets within this notebook. Looking forward to our next. The content of this letter ended here, with a long, crooked ink stain on the paper. Evidently, he didn't have time to complete his signature. He already knew Haynes's method. Find a way to sell the notebook to a familiar person, then extract all information from him, and finally brutally murder him. Welch and Naya were 2 innocent victims. Al-Hassan was right, the Aurora Order, those fellows, will stop at nothing to gain knowledge. There were other letters and replies on the table, some from the Divination Club, and others were correspondence between him and the mysterious Mr. Z. Kornli found 2 boxes and packed the letters separately. He took an iron box from a drawer, carefully felt around in Haynes's head for a while, and then extracted the Beander characteristic of sequence 9, secret supplicant, from near his brain. It was a thin, gauze-like, mist-like but substantial mass of grayish-black, from which faint sounds emanated, seemingly like intriguing whispers or the revelation of a great secret hidden in some corner of the world. The secret supplicant Beander characteristic should still be handed over to the church. Oh, and underfoot. He placed the 3 boxes on the bed, reached under the desk, and after some fumbling, found a shoebox. The lid was tightly closed, but Kornli's marauder potion told him that there should be something good hidden inside. What could it be? Kornli opened the box to reveal a black ring of unusually ancient design, with no explanation. This thing seemed to be of no use. However, since his potion told him it was a valuable item, he could keep it for now and have it appraised later. This appraisal wasn't convenient for Klein's divination. This time, he had already thought of a safer place. Kornli slipped the ring into his jacket pocket, checked again, and confirmed he hadn't missed anything. "Hey, Kornli," Klein's voice came from downstairs. "Second floor, study," Kornli replied. A minute later, Klein walked in with his cane and greeted Kornli. "Is it really him?" Klein looked at Hannes Vincent, who was slumped in the chair. "We saw him at the divination club yesterday." "That's right." Kornli pulled Klein to sit on the nearby bed. "Time is short, you should start the spirit medium ritual. I'll explain the details about him to you." "All right." Klein took out the potion he had prepared from his "In My Arms." Kornli retreated outside the room, watching Klein close the door and create a completely sealed space with a spirit wall. Klein took out the remaining half-bottle of Holy Night Powder from his "In My Arms," formulated from herbs like deep sleep flower, dragon's blood grass, crimson sandalwood, and mint. He gently opened the cap, brought it to his nose, and smelled a slightly stimulating but invigorating scent. He pulled Hannes's chair back 2 meters, evenly sprinkled the Holy Night Powder around Hannes's body, then gently closed his eyes, allowing his mind to settle, maintaining a meditative state, and slowly chanted the incantation written in Hermes. "I beseech the power of the night. I beseech the power of secrecy. I beseech the goddess's favor. I beseech you to allow me to spiritually communicate with the cultist within the altar." A chaotic, evil, bloodthirsty, and nauseating sensation surged from his brain. Klein's brain felt as if it had been suddenly plunged into boiling water, and after he entered the boiling water, a bone-chilling cold spread from his surroundings. His chest upward felt like it was being tormented by fire, while his chest downward felt as cold as if it had entered an ice cave. This can't go on. Klein's mind still remembered that the spirit wall he had drawn was 1 meter to his left. He struggled to pull out the mithril dagger from his "In My Arms," and with his left hand, forcefully swung it against the wall. The spirit wall made a soft crackle sound and was destroyed by Klein. Thud. Klein's body fell to the ground. Kornli and Al Hassan from outside the door rushed in. Al joined his index and middle fingers, pressing them one by one on Klein's forehead. He took out a bottle of black potion from his "In My Arms," flicked open the cap with his right thumb, and poured it down Klein's throat. "What happened to him?" Kornli asked anxiously. "I was too hasty." Al Hassan sighed. "Both of you perform so exceptionally that sometimes I forget you've only recently become official members. Klein is experiencing spiritual confusion. I've already given him the goddess's holy spring potion. He'll be fine in a few hours. If Miss Daly were here, her spirituality would be sufficient to discern whether the situation here is suitable for divination. You take him back to the headquarters and let him rest on the sofa for a few hours. He'll recover before work. I won't arrange any other tasks for you today." Kornli nodded, hoisted Klein onto his shoulder, requested a carriage from the police officer on duty downstairs, and returned to the team's headquarters. More than 2 hours later, Al also returned to the Blackthorn Security Company with all the team members. Besides the letter Kornli brought back, there were other pieces of evidence that needed to be sorted. "What happened to me?" Klein groaned softly as he woke up from the nearby sofa, his head groggy, as if a boxer had punched him in the face. "What number is this?" Shijia held up an index finger to Klein. 1, 2, 3, Klein mumbled, you're holding up one hand, right? His vague answer made everyone burst into laughter. When you were divining just now, you were affected by the residual power of the true creator left in Hannes's body. Although it was only a trace, it still consumed most of the spirituality in your body. Al-Hassan walked over and ruffled Klein's hair. You need to rest well today. Don't go home for now, your family will worry if they see you like this. Did you find anything useful? Al asked. Besides Kornli's letter, there's another one. Shijia handed over a piece of paper from the table. This letter was found in Cyrus's home and was also addressed to that Mr. Z. In the letter, he claimed that all decisions were Hannes's doing, which looks like an attempt to shirk responsibility. In other words, the two of them share a superior, that Mr. Z. Al-Hassan pulled out a cigarette from the cigarette box. All 22, divine envoys, of the Aurora Order are willing to use letters as their codenames. It seems Tingen City won't be quiet for a while. I will take these messages to the cathedral. Al-Hassan waved his hand. You've all worked hard. You can go back and rest now and come back to work this afternoon. I'll stand guard here. Leonard didn't move. Things haven't been peaceful recently. If the police station needs someone, they can at least find me here. Al-Hassan nodded and walked back to Dunn's office. Soon, the sound of typing from the office could be heard. I have nothing to do, so I can also be on duty here. Kornli put on his jacket, leaned back in the chair, and quickly fell asleep. After working all day and night, Kornli slept soundly until a few hours later, when his nose caught the familiar scent of fried steak. Hey, you're awake. Fry handed him a cup of coffee he had just brewed. You two slept like babies. Kornli opened his eyes and glanced at Klein, who had shifted from lying flat to a semi-reclined position. Klein was sipping a warm cup of black tea, seemingly much relieved from his headache. Are there any new clues? Kornli took the coffee. It's only been a few hours, what clues could there be? Fry said. However, Captain Dunn will be back in an hour or two. That fast? Kornli was surprised. Didn't Mr. Al-Hassan say he wouldn't be back in the office until this evening? I sent a telegram to the Holy Cathedral this morning. He knows that more has happened in the past 3 days he was away than he dealt with all last month. They say he's even lost a few hairs, Al-Hassan said. My hair count is still very strong, thank you for your concern. Captain Dunn's calm voice came from outside. He was carrying a small briefcase, his coat draped over his right forearm, as he walked into the team's communal office. Captain Dunn, you're back early. Backlund had a heavy rain, and they say the Tassoc River might overflow the tracks today, so the steam locomotive driver had to speed up to get everyone to their destination, Captain Dunn said as he walked into the room and put away his luggage. I learned some things from Al-Hassan's telegram, now I need to fill in the specific details. So, there's still one person tracking that notebook, and we suspect there's still one secret order suspect at large who has also issued us a warning. Cyrus Orippus is an Aurora Order member, and above him, there's a Mr. Z, who is one of the 22 emissaries of the Aurora Order, Captain Dunn frowned. I can confirm the latter. In my free time these past few days back at the Holy Cathedral, I've been looking at files on several secret organizations, including this damned Aurora Order. By the way, your life in Backlund has certainly been lively. On average, team members have to go out every night to deal with various situations. Captain Dunn looked at Al-Hassan, who spread his hands helplessly. I thought I'd get a couple of days of leisurely rest here besides escorting, 2049, but I still had to work overtime last night. I'll compensate you. Triss, who caused the commotion on the Shamrock, has remained untraceable. Captain Dunn nodded. For now, it seems there are only these 3 matters, which isn't too many. Since you're back, we'll leave in a few hours. Loloda was already complaining yesterday that the maids here aren't as good as those in Backlund. Al-Hassan stood up. Farewell. Praise the goddess. Everyone in the team office stood up and drew the shape of the crimson moon across their chests. You've all done well recently, especially Kornli and Klein, Captain Dunn said. Leonard, have the relevant materials been handed over to the police station? Yes, bounties with Triss's photo have been distributed everywhere. I don't have Cyrus's photo yet, but Klein said he'd find a way. I believe Cyrus and Haynes might have met at the Divination Club, which is the club Kornli and I frequent. There are a lot of people there, so I can ask the front desk lady, Klein said. If I have his appearance, I should be able to find his current residence through divination. You can go after you've rested, Captain Dunn said. I heard you were injured. How do you feel now? Headache, Klein said. Old Neil just gave me a very bitter potion, and I feel much better after drinking it. In that case, I'll be on duty guarding Channy's gate tonight. Everyone else can leave this afternoon. If needed, I'll have Brett find you. Captain Dunn stood up and returned to his room. We'll leave after lunch. Kornli looked at his and Klein's lunchboxes on the table, found a bag, and packed them up. We can go out and eat something good. Coming from the same great food-loving empire, there's no problem that a good meal can't solve. If there is, then have another one. The two arrived at a restaurant called Palm Tree Cottage, in the southern district of Tingen City. The owner was said to be from the Rhosid archipelago. Kornli picked up the menu and ordered 2 rich flavored curry crab dishes, slightly spicy lamb chops grilled with lemongrass and various spices, and a portion of rice cooked with something unknown, which had a refreshing fragrance. Rice. When Klein saw the rice, his eyes immediately fixated on it. After more than a month in this world, this was the first time he had seen rice here. You like this? Kornli knowingly placed the rice in front of Klein, suppressing a smile in his heart. This food is said to be from the Fanapotter kingdom. I don't know if this cooking method is authentic. Klein didn't speak. He picked up the communal spoon, scooped a large spoonful of rice onto his plate, then switched to his small spoon and took a bite. The satisfying texture spread from his mouth to his stomach. It seemed every cell was cheering for this mint-flavored rice. Damn it, why does it taste like mint? The familiar texture, combined with the unfamiliar taste, made Klein sigh. The headache also dissipated somewhat with this flavor. This is meant to be eaten with the crab. The owner walked in and diligently poured a large spoonful of crab meat with crab sauce over the rice on Klein's plate. Klein took another bite, and this time the taste was slightly better. How do you plan to inquire? Kornli served himself a spoonful of rice, paired it with a lamb chop, and took a bite. The taste indeed made him feel that it was far inferior to the rice from his previous world. Bad review. I haven't thought it through yet, but I heard Leonard say that you once told them Cyrus had a silver bracelet on his wrist. I plan to start from that angle. Klein was eating the crab in large mouthfuls. Crabs in this era were rarely eaten, so very few people fished for them, resulting in each crab weighing at least a pound, and just one could make a full large basin. I'm not sure if the police have informed them of Haynes' death, but we can start from that angle. Kornli took the menu and ordered another portion of fried sausages, a dish that no restaurant could get wrong. This rice was indeed quite bad. You mean, let the police intervene first and see their reaction? Klein nodded. That's a good idea. At 3 in the afternoon, Kornli and Klein arrived at the Seer Club again. The surrounding police officers, seeing the 2 detective trainees who had arrived at the police station a few minutes earlier, remained silent as per Kornli's instructions. Good afternoon, Miss Angelica, Klein said, removing his hat. What happened? It's unbelievable. Mr. Haynes Vanster actually died in his dream, Miss Angelica whispered in surprise, covering her small mouth. We just saw him yesterday. I didn't expect. Kornli feigned sorrow. Was anyone acting particularly strange? Overly grieved, or, I think, besides the few ladies who were quite close to him, not too many people expressed mourning. Miss Angelica leaned in and whispered, you know, Mr. Haynes was still single, so those ladies were actually more interested in him personally than concerned about him. Haynes had a truly miserable time. He wanted to develop a follower or two, but those who wanted to get close to him were only interested in him. You might as well sell yourself and earn a few more followers. Oh, right, I remember a few days ago, Mr. Haynes was talking in a low voice with a man by the door of the small conference room inside. I saw Mr. Haynes's expression was a bit angry, and I think that man seemed a bit suspicious, Kornli said, resting his chin on one hand and winking at Miss Angelica. Which gentleman? Miss Angelica asked, opening her record book in confusion. There have been 6 gentlemen who came to Mr. Haynes for a seer recently, I don't remember. You might have forgotten, he had a bracelet on his wrist, and it seemed to have a cross on it. Yes, a silver cross. I know who you're talking about now, Miss Angelica smiled. It should be Mr. Tobecca, he often carries a string of crosses. Aha, a lead. Kornli and Klein exchanged a glance. The former took out a 1-sol banknote from his pocket and quietly slipped it to Miss Angelica. Could you help me draw his likeness? I don't remember it very clearly, Miss Angelica said with difficulty, but her eyes involuntarily glanced at the banknote. It's all right, you can go to the citrine room with Mr. Klein. My good friend Mr. Klein should be able to help you remember, Kornli winked. During this time, I don't mind watching the front desk for you for a few minutes. A few minutes? Angelica looked around. All right, I can spare a few minutes. A dream charm was silently slipped into Klein's outer coat pocket by Kornli. Please follow me, Klein skillfully led Miss Angelica into the citrine room. 10 minutes later, Miss Angelica, looking sleepy, gazed at the portrait in Klein's hand and followed Klein back to the front desk. Did I really draw this? I thought my drawing skills were returned to Miss Merrill 10 years ago. Of course, you did very well, Klein handed the portrait to Kornli. The man in the portrait had deep blue eyes and was about the same height as Klein, but his hair was much thinner than Klein's. He wore a white collared shirt and a jacket, and had 2 not too thick mustaches around his mouth. Please get us a cup of coffee and a cup of black tea, and could you bring them to the citrine room for us, thank you, Kornli said to Miss Angelica, then turned and walked out. A few minutes later, Kornli returned with a police officer. Haywood Matthew, reporting to the 2 trainee detectives, Haywood saluted the 2 men with a spirited demeanor. Idiot, we're in plain clothes for investigation, don't expose our identities. Kornli placed the portrait on the table and pressed Haywood in front of it. Copy this quickly. We're short on time. Pay attention to the eyes and mustache. Yes, sir. Haywood took out paper and a pen and quickly sketched a portrait that was about 90% similar to the original, which was quite rare for that era. Very good. Go back to the police station and quickly distribute the portraits to all places that attract people. Bars, especially, need to be focused on. Kornli breathed a sigh of relief. Be quick. Yes, sir. Haywood instinctively started to salute again, but 2 murderous gazes fixed on him. He involuntarily dropped his right hand and turned to leave. That idiot, I even let him get promoted last time because of Biller's matter. He doesn't seem to be quick-witted at all. Let's go back. Kornli and Klein walked out the door and returned to their station in a Blackthorn Security Company 2-wheeled carriage. Well done, Captain Dunn said, examining the portrait for a few seconds. Have old Neil make a few more copies, ensuring everyone on duty has one. We've already given a copy of the portrait to the police station. I believe within a few hours, relevant portraits will be posted all over Tingen City, Kornli said. As long as he's still in Tingen City, we hope to find him quickly. Your efficiency is very high, Captain Dunn smiled. Go rest. There's something I need to tell you. Kornli and Klein walked out of the station. Kornli stopped at the entrance. Honiches. Flegre. What did these mean? Klein was startled. When that corpse was transported to the morgue, it was possessed or communed with by someone from afar, in a way I couldn't understand. It opened its eyes and spoke these 2 words. You both belong to the seer sequence. Do these 2 words have any meaning to you? Kornli looked at Klein. No, I don't know, Klein said, shrugging his shoulders as if unconcerned. I'll look up the meaning of these 2 words. Klein, you really are cautious. Go back and rest early. Kornli watched Klein walk to the street corner and board a public carriage, then slowly walked northwest towards Tingen City's dock area. The dock area, the Evil Dragon Bar. Kornli remembered that this was a gathering place for underground Beander items and herbs, opened by Svein, the former Punisher's captain, and was relatively safe. It was still early. He pushed open the bar door. The air inside was filled with smoke, and a few tables of dock workers were loudly chatting. The bartender stood behind the bar, bored, wiping glasses. Is Svein here? Kornli nodded at the bartender and asked. Who are you? I don't remember seeing you before. A man sitting nearby stood up from a bar stool and walked over. Friend, or enemy? Old Neil sends his regards, my dear Mr. Svein, Kornli said, taking off his hat. I am his colleague. Svein waved his hand, and the bartender's hand pulled out a double-barreled shotgun from under the bar, ejected the already loaded bullet, released the safety, and carefully put it back. Next time, tell me clearly in advance. My subordinate almost turned you into a puddle of flesh. Svein, reeking of alcohol, spread his hands. For old Neil and your captain's sake, how much do you need? I can give you a discounted price. No, I don't need money, Kornli chuckled. I want to ask if you've seen this person recently. He took out old Neil's sketch portrait from his pregnant and handed it to Svein, who took it, thought for a few seconds, and nodded. You two just missed each other by a few hours. He just left. Svein said. The reason I remember him is because he wanted to find documents and items related to Honach's main peak. Such things are very rare, so I had a slight impression of him. What's wrong with him? Aurora Order, Kornli said. You used to be the captain of the Punisher's team, you should know what those 3 words mean. Svein's expression suddenly changed. That bastard is from the Aurora Order. And Haynes is Vincent. They are together. Haynes is a local diviner of some renown. He often comes here to look for mystical artifacts and herbs. I didn't expect them to be members of the infamous Aurora Order, Svein sighed. Thank you for the warning. It would be even better if you could tell me the direction he left in, Kornli said. Out the door, to the east, the bartender glanced at Svein, who nodded slightly, signaling him to continue. He didn't take a carriage, he must have walked to avoid being followed. His temporary residence should not be far from here. To the east, there are only 2 settlements, mostly inhabited by fishermen who rely on fishing for a living. Those fishermen usually gather to mend their nets when they have nothing to do. You only need a few 1-penny coins to find out about the nearby situation from them. Thank you, Kornli nodded. Besides that, I have one more thing. He took out the black ring from his pregnant. What is this? Now I can confirm that Haynes is dead, Svein smiled. This is the appraiser's ring he bought from me. At that time, he spent almost 200 sol. It can provide an effect similar to a God of Steam and Machinery's Sequence 7 appraiser, quickly determining the usage and purpose of a Beander item. It's a very useful thing. Compared to that, its side effects are not very obvious. After using it, you might have a headache or temporary amnesia. The best way is to take it off, then hide under the bed for an hour or 2, waiting in darkness for this period to pass. Each time, you can only appraiser a maximum of 3 Beander items, Svein said. Thank you, Kornli was overjoyed. Giving a marauder a ring that can appraiser the value of items is no different from giving a narcoleptic a huge, soft bed. Good luck. Svein's right hand, resting on the bar, tapped the nearby wine barrel. The bartender, understanding, brought Kornli a full glass of dark beer. If you're walking, it's not a short journey. This can help you maintain your physical strength. This one's on me. Thank you, Kornli nodded, took the beer, and drained it in one gulp, then pulled out a 1 sol banknote from his pocket and placed it on the table. This is a tip. He's a polite young fellow. Svein watched Kornli's retreating back and whispered, not bad. Kornli walked east with the portrait. This was already the northeastern edge of Tingen city, and people became fewer and fewer. According to Svein, he quickly found several old fishermen huddled together, drinking cheap alcohol, by a group of fishing boats. I know where this guy lives. What price can you give? A man, already drunk, barely managed to lift his nose, which was red from the cheap alcohol, to look at Kornli. Hey, old stinker, we all know where this guy lives. Why should you be the one to tell? The man next to him dissatisfiedly pulled the old stinker's hand. 3 pennies, no, 2 pennies, and I'll tell you. Kornli took out a few 1-penny coins from his pregnant, tossed them gently in the air, and then caught them one by one. You can tell me any information you have, and I'll pay you according to its importance, Kornli smiled. I have enough money to buy you 2 bottles of this rum. Generous fellow, the old stinker nodded. We'll tell you everything we know. A few minutes later, Kornli stood up. According to the old stinker and his drinking buddies, Cyrus, or Mr. Morris, as they called him, lived in the farthest tin house to their west. He rarely came out, staying in the house except to buy bread. An hour and a half ago, the old stinker saw Mr. Morris hurrying past, carrying a paper bag with 2 loaves of black bread, seemingly returning to his residence. Thank you. Kornli handed 6 1-penny coins to the old stinker and glanced at the moon gradually rising in the sky. The moonlight was beautiful today. Kornli put on his hat and lightly moved through the shadows of the fishermen's crude dwellings, which were enclosed by rows of tin sheets. 10 minutes later, he arrived at Cyrus's residence. He leaned against the corner of the wall, carefully observing. There were 2 inconspicuous candlelight inside the house. In the candlelight, a figure knelt on one knee, seemingly praying for something. It must be Cyrus. This guy is praying to the fallen creator. Is he trying to cause something here? Kornli looked around. To resist the wind and rain, all the tin houses here were built side by side. At least 30 to 40 families lived here, and if some fishermen also had wives and children, then there were at least 50 to 60 lives here. Kornli continued to observe, and his pupils suddenly contracted. Under the reflection of the candlelight, a huge cross-shaped figure slowly rose on the wall of the tin house, growing larger and larger. He seemed to hear some voices coming from an unknown place. Those voices seemed to be whispering, and when Kornli focused on the voices themselves, they were as captivating as the gentle waves by the sea. Kornli shook his head and looked at the tin house again. He vaguely saw that the figure on the wall had become incredibly tall, and a huge hanged man figure swayed slightly on the wall, seemingly ready to jump down at any moment. No, it's too late. His position and angle made it impossible to deliver a fatal crossbow arrow to Cyrus. Kornli sighed, took out despair from his pregnant, and aimed it at the tin house where Cyrus was. Bang! Who? Cyrus heard the sound of bullets by his ear. The prayers from his mouth grew louder and higher, a white light slowly rising in his eyes, as he knelt on the ground. From the blasphemy cross, on his left wrist, a great power surged through his entire body, making his prayer words come out faster and faster. The creator of all, the ruler behind the veil of shadows, the fallen self-nature of all living beings. Your humble believer, Cyrus Orippus, requests your attention. The people here cruelly murdered another of your loyal believers. They have forgotten your power and must receive their due punishment. Please open your eyes, I beg for your great power, I beg for your gaze. He muttered, suddenly stuffing the little finger of his left hand into his mouth. With a forceful bite from his upper and lower teeth, he actually bit off his own left little finger and swallowed it directly. A crimson light emanated from the blasphemy cross in his hand, and a roar escaped his throat. All his muscles inexplicably swelled and thickened, growing larger, and the perfectly fitted formal suit on his body tore into strips of fabric, falling to the ground. His height grew higher and higher, gradually breaking through the tin roof of the house. The crimson moonlight shone upon him, and his eyes became dazed, but his consciousness remained. No, it shouldn't be like this, it shouldn't. On the horizon, boundless black clouds rolled in, obscuring the light of the crimson moon. Within the black clouds, a pillar of light descended from the sky, forming a cross several meters high behind Cyrus. Cyrus's body inexplicably rotated 180 degrees, hanging upside down on the cross, head down and feet up, and an inhuman sound emanated from the air. You die. Damn it. Other than this sound, Kornli had no other words to describe the feeling in his heart at that moment. Cyrus's hands moved slightly, and 2 streaks of red light shot out from them, landing precisely on the old drunkard who had just put down his wine bottle in the distance. The short, thick nails on his dark, rough hands instantly became sharp and slender, the gaze in his eyes turned fanatical, and his ears twitched slightly, as if hearing sounds that did not belong to this world. His eyes suddenly burst open with a bang, countless tiny fleshy tendrils wriggling in his eye sockets, and countless lumps slowly surging beneath his skin. His hands aimlessly slashed at his old drunkard companions of over a decade around him, and for a moment, flesh and blood flew everywhere. Run. Must run fast. Whatever this thing was, it had already transcended the realm of humanity, or rather, it had transcended the scope of what he could defeat. Bang bang bang. Bang bang bang. Kornli emptied the remaining 6 bullets from despair, and then swapped in another magazine, firing again into the air. Deafening gunshots echoed through this temporary dwelling place of fishermen, while he himself quickly ran towards the evil dragon bar, using the shadows for cover. Thump! A tremendous force shook the ground. As Kornli ran, he turned his head and saw the giant cross, carrying the mutated Cyrus, take a step towards Tingen city. Damn it, it can move. Although its movement speed was very slow, each step covered nearly 10 meters. If this continues, something big will happen in Tingen city tonight. It seemed as if a fire was burning in Kornli's lungs. The journey that had taken him nearly 30 minutes to arrive, he now covered in less than 5 minutes. He rushed open the door of the evil dragon bar. Svine's hand, which was raising a beer mug, twitched slightly due to Kornli's forceful entry. He turned his head and looked at Kornli with a hint of displeasure. The second cup isn't free. Send someone to notify the Punishers, the Nighthawks, and the Machinery Hivemind team. Tell them to send all available high-sequence Beyonders over, quickly. Kornli gasped for breath. That bastard Cyrus has turned into a true creator's puppet. Thump. As if to confirm Kornli's words, a huge earth-shaking sound came from afar. Svine's expression drastically changed. He pushed open the door and glanced to the west, taking a sharp intake of breath. By the Lord of Storms, what in the world is that? Everyone, exit through the back door, hurry up and get out. Put down your damned beer glasses, yes, you don't need to pay. Svine kicked and shoved all the bewildered customers out of the bar. He forcefully pulled down the candelabra stand on the nearby wall, and a jingling sound echoed from within, followed by hurried footsteps from beneath their feet. The black market can't possibly have only one entrance and exit, Svine explained casually, looking at Kornli. You go notify the Punishers and tell the Lord Bishop to bring the sealed artifact. Beyonders who are not Sequence 7 seafarers don't need to come, they'd just be sending themselves to their deaths. You go notify the Machinery Hivemind team. On my behalf, request at least 2 high-pressure steam rifles and 100 rounds of ammunition for assistance, as well as their talismans. You, go notify Captain Dunn. Svine dismissed his bartender and subordinates, finally looking at Kornli. Tell them to come quickly, this old life of mine can only last a few more minutes. Why aren't you evacuating? I have nowhere to go. Svine gave a bitter smile. I've lived here for 47 years, 8 months, and 23 days. Every single plank of this bar was nailed by my own hands. My child is sleeping upstairs, and my old companions, with whom I've lived my whole life, are making a living nearby. Where do you want me to go? I once swore to protect the safety of this dock, and that oath is still valid. Svine walked into the bar, lifted a wooden board, and took out 2 brand new high-pressure steam machine guns from underneath. Looking at Kornli, he said, if you're unwilling to leave and stay with this old man, then I just happen to have an extra one of these toys. Kornli smiled. How do you use this thing? Thump, thump. That fellow's walking speed grew faster and faster, as if he had transformed from a crawling infant into a teenager who could hop and skip. These are the bullets. Svine handed him a row of 5 bullets. The high-pressure steam machinery needs to be carried on your back, and the button is at your waist. If the button turns green, it means the pressure is sufficient. If it turns red, and you haven't found an opportunity to fire, you need to press the button next to it to release the pressure. Otherwise, boom. Kornli nodded, indicating he understood, and reached out to take 4 rows, a total of 20 bullets. What we need to do is to keep that thing trapped here, waiting for rescue, Svein said, clicking the bullets into the magazine and pulling the bolt. Come back alive, and I'll treat you to aged whiskey. After Svein finished speaking, his body suddenly accelerated, rushing out at a speed utterly inconsistent with his age, and disappeared into the dock. Don't die, you old geezer. Kornli's impression of Svein inexplicably increased significantly. He strenuously hoisted the high-pressure steam rifle onto his back and exited through the back door. In his gaze, the towering stick in the distance, silhouetted against the moonlight, moved forward slowly and comically like a chopstick. He needed to find a good position. Kornli looked left and right, swung the barrel behind him, stomped his right foot hard on the wall, gripped the rain-sheltering tin sheet with both hands, and used all 10 fingers to pull himself and the high-pressure steam rifle up. Then, he repeated the action. A minute later, breathing heavily, he set up the rifle on the roof of the 3rd floor, watching Cyrus gradually approach. Ha! Cyrus, upside down, seemed to have forgotten his basic human instincts. Every breath he took rumbled like thunder, and his eyes scanned the surroundings silently like a radar. The distance closed. Kornli's left hand tapped the "pressurize" button at his waist, and a wisp of high-temperature steam slowly emerged from behind him. He slowly lowered his head, aligning Cyrus's head in the crosshairs. Bang! A gunshot in the distance immediately caught Cyrus's attention. The lower end of the cross rotated nearly 70 degrees towards the other side. Red light flickered in his hands as he seemed to search for Svein, who had fired the bullet. Kornli felt a vibration at his waist. It was the signal that the steam was ready. Bang! His muzzle spat out a burst of fire, and a massive bullet erupted from the barrel. The enormous recoil slammed the gunstock directly into Kornli's right shoulder, who was using this weapon for the first time, and an irresistible force knocked his entire body sideways. Ah! Children's screams, women's fearful sobs, and chaotic footsteps reached Kornli's ears. The several-meter-tall True Creator statue caused sufficient panic among nearby residents. They fled in all directions, only hoping to survive this attack. Sigh. A sigh echoed through the heavens and earth. The appearance of people caught Cyrus's attention. Red light wantonly appeared in his hands, striking the ground and the crowds. Those hit by the red light instantly mutated like old stink bugs, wielding their black-nailed hands to cruelly attack their wives, husbands, parents, family, and friends. Yes, that's right, just like this. This world needs the irrigation of blood, the sacrifice of flesh and blood, and even more, the attention paid to us, the Great Aurora Order. Mr. Z, dressed in a black robe, stood on the crown of an ancient tree, observing his masterpiece with satisfaction. Without his intervention just now, Cyrus's actions would have been merely an ordinary prayer. But under his influence, the elegy Cyrus recited, combined with his own arrangements, drew down a trace of the true Creator's power, and Cyrus unknowingly became a sacrifice. Praise the Almighty Lord, all glory belongs to you, Mr. Z prayed in a low voice, his figure vanishing from the treetop. Enjoy this little dessert, residents of Tingen City. The main course will arrive soon. Bang! Bang! 2 high-pressure steam rifle bullets struck 2 corpses, wildly slaughtering people in the crowd. The 2 corpses slowly fell, but also simultaneously exposed Kornli's and Svein's positions. Kornli quickly retreated, rapidly climbing down a nearby drainpipe to the ground, and then ran swiftly into the distance, holding despair in his left hand and rapidly firing at the mutated crowd. The sound of rapid hooves came from afar. 2 four-wheeled carriages sped from east to west. Kornli felt a sense of relief. It seemed reinforcements had arrived. One carriage stopped 30 meters from Kornli. A man in a light blue robe, wearing the Storm Church emblem on his chest, emerged from it. He glanced at Kornli and nodded slightly. Leave this to the Storm Church. You must leave immediately. Don't get hit by his red light. Kornli hadn't finished speaking when 2 streams of air appeared beneath the man's feet, and his body was rapidly propelled by a gust of wind, flying towards Cyrus. 2 rapidly compressed wind spheres appeared in his hands, shooting directly at Cyrus's hands. His right hand grabbed into the harbor seawater nearby, and a massive amount of seawater formed a seemingly exceptionally sharp awl, piercing directly at Cyrus's heart. What a magnificent attack! Kornli, Captain Dunn jumped down from the other carriage, followed by Leonard. What happened? Kornli pulled the two of them under the eaves and thoroughly explained what had happened a few hours earlier. You really stumbled upon Cyrus's experience quite by accident. Leonard brushed his messy hair. What do we do now? I'm not sure. Kornli took off the high-pressure steam rifle from his shoulder. This thing is useless against Cyrus. Waves of red ripples emanated from Cyrus's body, resisting the water arrows and wind blades fired by the man in the distance. The airflow beneath his feet was varied and flexible, dodging Cyrus's red light while seeking an opportunity to scout Cyrus's weakness. That guy seems pretty strong. Kornli gestured his head towards that direction. He can fight Cyrus to a standstill by himself. Singer of God, Ace Snake, the cardinal of the Backlund region, just arrived in Tingen City yesterday and encountered this. Captain Dunn smiled. I don't know if it's lucky or unlucky. At this moment, two carriages drove from afar and stopped behind Captain Dunn's carriage. Two people got out, nodded slightly to Captain Dunn, and took out two high-pressure steam rifles from the back of the carriage, joining the battle simultaneously. Don't get hit by the red light, Kornli reminded again. The two men nodded heavily. The carriage driver got down from the front, used his hands to remove a large section of the carriage's side panel, and slightly flipped it. The panel transformed into a large shield, perfectly capable of covering 3 people. Two men slowly advanced with high-pressure steam rifles, and Kornli couldn't help but secretly envy this advanced tactic. This is the machinery hivemind squad's tactic. Most of them are Savant's sequence or Old Neil's mystery prior sequence. Sequence 9 and Sequence 8's attacking power isn't outstanding, so extensive use of firearms is their primary means of attack, Dunn explained. Can I try it? Leonard looked at the high-pressure steam rifle in Kornli's hand, his eyes shining with a light all men understood. What a big toy. Here, Kornli briefly explained how to use it and hung the high-pressure steam rifle on Leonard's shoulder. This is Svine's private weapon. If you break it, you'll have to pay. For more thrilling fanfiction stories like this, check out my channel Fanfic Audiobook. Dive into epic adventures, mysterious realms, and legendary journeys brought to life through immersive storytelling. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing audiobooks.